on paper, Alabama right now is a better football team, and you have to count the Jordan Travis injury. It was almost like a fresh slate for them. And I said that on Friday. I said you have to look at them as if they have a 2-game resume because they are just a totally different team. Quarterback, and I said this last week as well, the quarterback position is the single most important position in any sport. And they lost the top guy there in Jordan Travis. So with that being said, it's such a big loss that I think they got it right. The problem that I had with the whole situation is the way that the committee led up to this. Because these rankings that happen at the very beginning, the penultimate rankings that come out for championship week, that basically tells you the path for everybody. I think we can all agree on that. Like, you saw Alabama was the 8 seed you had Texas as the 7. So basically the committee was telling you, hey, if it comes down to these two teams, who's getting in ahead of the other? Texas getting in ahead of Alabama. They put Florida State at 4, which seemed to signal, hey, an undefeated Power 5 matters more than the quarterback. And then it changed on a dime when it came to making the decision. That was my biggest issue with it. Did they get it right? I think so, by putting Alabama in.
The only one that you're arguing in this one is really Texas. Because, and I know a lot of people will look at Alabama, but Alabama beat Georgia, the SEC champion. Now, I know you're keeping the ACC champion out of this one, but it comes down to the decision between Florida State and Texas. And look.
Well, no, I think it's the decision because Texas beat Alabama. Head-to-head is worth more.
Exactly. And that's why I think Florida State was out.
Alabama versus Florida State.
And that's why I think Florida State was out. Who had the better win? Alabama, who just took down the number 1 team, the undefeated Georgia Bulldogs at 13-0. That's why if you're going to pick apart those, and the only reason I said it was Texas and Florida State was because those were the 2 flawed teams. Those were the 2 teams that you looked at and you're like, do they really deserve to be in this playoff ranking? One's 12-1, but they've got a really good victory against Alabama. That's in because they beat Georgia. But you also got Florida State that's 13-0 and just won the ACC championship. But then you get to the quarterback. And look, this is a lot of firsts with these rankings. So according to ESPN stats on Twitter, it's the first time a team outside the top 6 in the penultimate rankings made the playoffs. The number 1 team in the penultimate ranking fell out of the top 4, which is Georgia, and an undefeated Power 5 team was left out. So those are our opinions, and Dennis Dodd of CBS, well, he had a different opinion.
It's 18 hours later, and I'm still upset. I called it an abomination on our air yesterday. It's been going on for years, this kind of groupthink that the SEC plays football and everybody else is playing Frisbee golf. We're not talking about TCU or Cincinnati or Lindenwood or something like that. We're talking about Florida State, a national program with a wounded quarterback. Flip the tables on this, guys. Had Alabama gotten to this point and used a second or third string quarterback to get to the end to go undefeated, it would have been the best story in the country. Instead, they've weaponized it against Florida State. This should be a reason why they're in. I know it looked ugly offensively, but that defense is national caliber.
First of all, Dennis, love you, by the way. No reason to take a shot at Lindenwood University.
Yeah, uncalled for.
Let's go Lions. Could have taken down Florida State easily.
Well.
But the one part I would disagree with there is, and I guess also agree with, is, look, if Alabama was playing their third string quarterback and they looked the way that Florida State looked, not just in that championship game, but to the games leading up to it, I'd be saying the exact same thing. They nearly beat Miami. They did beat Miami, but they barely beat them. And that's a game you look at and you're like, yeah, you should have walked away with it. Defense wasn't as extraordinary as they made it out to be in that ACC championship game. So I think the narrative of we're doing this just because Florida State lost its top quarterback, if anybody else, we would be glorifying them. I don't think we would. I think we'd be talking the exact same about Georgia, Texas, Washington. If they all lost their top dog, we'd be saying, I don't know if they deserve to be in it.
And I agree with you there because if Alabama played their third string and he looked second or third string and he looked like Rodemaker and he looked like the quarterback that Florida State played in the championship game this weekend, let's just be honest. They're not beating Georgia, and we're not even having a conversation about a 2-loss Alabama. And I know everybody kind of circles the Ohio State squad where they lost their quarterback. I can't remember who it was at the time.
It was J.T. Barrett and Cardinals Jones.
And Jones steps in. Jones looked awesome, by the way. Like, let's not forget that. Yeah. It's not like Jones stepped in through like less than 100 passing yards.
looked like it never missed a beat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest difference for you. And look, I totally understand the whole argument for Florida State. Again, I truly thought they were going to make the playoff going into yesterday because they were ranked 4 heading into that ACC championship game. That I thought the committee was saying, hey, we can't leave out a Power 5 unbeaten. And to Florida State's credit, for how bad their quarterback play was the last 2 games, it does say a lot that they won both of them. Now, I know Florida's not a good team, but that's on the road in a very tough environment. And Florida gave Missouri a test, by the way. Let's not forget that Florida came into Mizzou and nearly upset the Tigers. They gave them a really good test. Then you play a Louisville team that, though didn't look that great, is 14th in the country going into that game. Like, there is something to be said that they win 2 games without Jordan Travis.
And you honestly believed, however, that even if Florida State had had a stranglehold on that game, third-string quarterback notwithstanding, that the SEC wouldn't have had the opportunity to still get into this mix. I never bought it. I never bought that narrative, that angle from the first place. As soon as Jordan Travis went down, that completely shifted the storyline and gave the SEC all it needed, the ammunition, even in the event of a Georgia loss, for an Alabama to creep in. Even though, bear in mind, guys, just a week ago, Alabama was the team that somehow just narrowly evaded defeat against Auburn, and we're not even talking about that.
I think at the end of the day with this, you're talking about a ranking system, not saying one team is better than the other or saying like, oh, well, this means that they're the 6th best team in college football. No, this is a group of people that decided these were the 4 teams that were worthy of being in the playoff. And frankly, that's why I was glad they went with this, because these are the 4 best matchups for people to watch.
I don't necessarily care about the matchups itself, but I do think it is the 4. Like, I don't think they should be looking at it as, okay, what are the best matchups? The way you look at it is, who are the 4 best teams? And I think they did get that right. What is just the ultimate, like, kick you while you're down moment is ranking Florida State at 5. Like, you should have ranked them at 8 going into the weekend, and then they should have remained at 8 after this weekend because of what we're just talking about. That the committee basically said they never really had a shot to make the playoff after the Jordan Travis injury. Fair or not, I think that's how it was, but they didn't say that in the rankings. And again, that's my whole issue with it is I think the committee handled this poorly in terms of the way that they started this by going into Champ Week, and then the way they handled it by putting them at 5. Just kick them while they're down is basically what the committee did.
Well, yeah, it is about that recency bias, too, because you go all the way back to the start of the season. There are no points to be awarded to Florida State for taking that challenge and beating an LSU in week number 1 and even trouncing Duke a few weeks thereafter. Alabama lost so early in the season, granted, albeit at home, to Texas, and that's where you stay.
On the positive side, we got the best matchup you could ask for the Missouri Tigers.
They didn't get Liberty. What do you mean?
You don't need Liberty. I don't want Liberty or Tulane.
Liberty.
I don't want any of that trash. No, they got Ohio State as they're playing in the Cotton Bowl. And this is a matchup. I wanted to... Personal preference, I wanted to see Mizzou versus Texas, but Texas, of course, gets into the playoffs there. But I like the Mizzou versus Ohio State scenario for this team. I think it's a good matchup. I think it's something that Ohio State might not be playing the full roster that you'd anticipate, but it's a good name recognition for a great season by Mizzou.
Yeah, it's a great job to get into the New Year's Six Bowl and get to the Cotton Bowl and take on Ohio State. But, man, this bowl's already starting to lose some of its luster because Ohio State's quarterback just entered the transfer portal this morning, which is just like, and look, after reading up on this, McCord, I don't even think he was probably going to start this bowl game because Ryan Day was pretty critical of him, and McCord was like, all right, deuces, I'm leaving Ohio State. I don't think Harrison's going to play their top wide receiver because he's going to be a potential top 5 draft pick. So the bowl already feels like it's losing some of its luster. But, hey, congrats to Mizzou. I mean, you got to a New Year's Six Bowl. I can't even say Illinois bowling. So, hey, congrats to the Missouri Tigers.
And that's the thing. For Mizzou fans, I don't believe that it loses any of its luster whatsoever because you are going to this big-time venue. You're returning to Arlington for the first time since 2014 when you knocked off Oklahoma State in a great game. And we're looking at it. We're trying to scrutinize it, guys, on the merits of the game itself and how it will be executed. For fans, they're looking looking at the blue blood program. You have been able to draw in Ohio State, and while it would be great to examine those storylines and see a matchup of Harrison Jr. versus Burden, all those different things, the fact that you are playing the Buckeyes and you're not playing a team that's perceived as more of an also-ran from a lower conference, that means everything to so many different people. And this team is going to approach it differently insofar as you have a number of seniors who have been together, who are going to band together for this game. They don't have those OSU-style blue-chip NFL prospects who feel the need to sit out. Schrader, Robinson, etc., they're all in for this game.
So it'll be a good matchup. Cotton Bowl, Mizzou versus Ohio State, December 29th. He's Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. It is BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, the Blues laid a dud on Saturday against the Arizona Coyotes. And one thing is very clear about this team. 60 minutes right now is not in the cards. What does that mean for this team, big picture? Oh, you're good.
Oh, trigger finger.
Congratulations to Amanda Pulfer from Peevely, Missouri, my neck of the woods. She is this week's 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week. Taking home Blues tickets and a $50 Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. 101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week is brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings, official member of This Bar Bleeds Blue, presented by Bud Light. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
Coyotes get it up over the line and dump it down into the near corner. After it, there's Kerfoot to the front of the net. They bounce it in and score. Not the start the Blues wanted. 40 seconds in. Coyotes get it back. Jersey again. Looking for a lane. Not there. Right wing. Passes to Keller to the goal line. Kerfoot centers. Easy goal. Schmaltz will score. Kesselring will bring it up. Skate past Kyrou into the middle to Krause. To the near side. Michelli scores. And I think we're going to see Jordan Binnington for the 6th straight game. Kyrou going far wing. And into Shen. It's knocked away. Coyotes down the ice to the empty net and score. Kesselring. 4-1 the final tonight. Arizona Coyotes over the St. Louis Blues.
So the Blues lose to kick off this 2-game road trip. That was on Saturday night with Chris Kerber and Joe Vitale. By the way, we'll be with you tonight for Blues and Golden Knights. Puck drop at 9 o'clock. Your First Community Credit Union pregame begins at 8 o'clock here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Another game that the Blues lose, but they lose it in the first period. Slow starts have been the biggest bugaboo for this team from start to finish. They don't show up when the puck drops in the first period, find themselves down by a lot, and then next thing you know, the Blues are unable to come back. They had a really decent second period, third period, where they started to bring it a little bit towards the Arizona Coyotes, but when you found yourself down by 3 goals at the end of the first period, it all felt like it was over. They had 3 shots on goal in that first period, T-Bone. They can't put together a full 60 minutes. It's very clear that's the major reason that this team struggles. But being down by so much in the first period is the other part that really surprised me. So I looked this up on Saturday night. It's the 5th time this season that the Blues have given up a goal less than 60 seconds into the start of the period.
Wow.
Yeah. So the 5 out of 23 games this season, the Blues have given up a goal to their opponent less than 60 seconds into a period. But then Grant Francis looked this one up. When they outscore their opponent in the first period, 20-7, by the way, they've outscored their opponent 20-7 in wins. That's the 3rd most goals that they have scored in the National Hockey League in the first period when they win games. But when they lose, they are outscored in the first period 19-3, which is the 6th most goals any team has given up in the first period in losses. So it's very clear. If the Blues can win the first period, they've got a chance to win that hockey game. But the biggest issue for this team all season long has been when the puck drops, the other team shows up and the Blues can't find a way to bounce back into it. And Torrey Krug, following that game on Saturday, talked about those slow starts for St. Louis.
Another game where we got to stop the momentum before it ends up as 3 goals, and like it did tonight. So we have about 10 minutes there of bad hockey, 10-15 minutes of okay hockey, and 35 minutes of good, but it's not good enough.
You fixed the first 10 minutes. This team's in a different position all season long.
So I know the numbers that you just said. They win the first period, then they more than likely win the hockey game. Look, though the numbers don't lie, they still don't play consistent enough hockey and play the full 60 minutes, because there are games where I've seen them play well in the first and maybe they win the first period, but then I see the second and third period and go, okay, they just survived an onslaught, which, Look, sometimes you're going to have to do that to win a hockey game. But I can't pinpoint a single game this year, whether it's they had a good first period or not, where I think they've played a full 60 minutes. I just can't. Maybe the game where they blew, I can't remember who their blowout victory was against. Was it Net? No,
it was Colorado.
Colorado. When they blew out Colorado, thank you. I knew it was a central opponent. When they blew out Colorado this year.
They outscored them 3-0 in the first period.
That's the one game I would probably say, okay, I think they played a full 60 minutes.
Calgary was the other one, though, because Calgary, they shut out the Flames and they outscored them 2-0 in the first period.
Okay, Calgary too. So that's 2 games out of 22. That's just not good enough. And look, I don't want to be too critical of them, because this is what I was expecting this year, a team that's going to be a little inconsistent, be right around that 500 mark, and that's where they are right now, and they're in the playoff picture. But they need to find a way to play 60 minutes to kind of feel better about themselves at the end of the regular season and going forward in this retool, because this is something that good hockey teams do, is play consistently 60 minutes, and you know what you're going to get from everybody on a night in, night out basis. And so far this year, that just hasn't been the case. Over the weekend, it was the slow start in the first period, and what happens, and it ends up killing them. There have been games this year where I go, okay, they play well in the first period, and I go, second, third period, they just weren't there, and they were either lucky to get out of that game or they end up losing that game. So the big issue for them this year, I don't think they're great at anything. I don't think they're awful at anything. They just cannot put together a full 60 minutes, which is a big reason why there's so much inconsistency around this team.
Yeah, you know what that sounds like? It sounds like a team that's in the middle of a retool. It sounds like a team that's trying to figure out how to fix areas of their game. The hard part is they do look good for certain periods, and you're like, this is the team that you envision the St. Louis Blues. And I think it's it states the mental fragility still for this Blues team, which is what Doug Armstrong talked a lot about last season. From game to game, they don't have the problem. The problem is in game, and that's why that first period number is so alarming to me. Because if they exit the first period in a tie, down by a goal, they have the chance to come back. But the problem isn't just giving up one goal. It's the Blues lack the ability to stop the snowball in game, which is that full 60 minutes we're talking about. If they start slow and the other team brings it to them, you're talking about the other team scoring less than 5 minutes into the first period. But then within the next 60 to 90 seconds, the other team's going to get another big scoring chance. And if your goaltender doesn't stop it, the Blues are down by 2, and then they're down by 3. So they fixed the snowball from game to game, which is a massive piece to fix. Now they've got to find a way to fix the snowball in game from period to period.
Which is interesting because I would think fixing the snowball from game to game would lead to fixing the snowball in the game, but it hasn't. And they've got the veteran leadership there. Like it's not like we're talking about a very young team, like the Blackhawks or the Ducks. Like I would expect a team like that's very young to have those issues of not being able to stop the bleeding when it happens early on in games or at any point in a game. But for whatever reason, this team has this older group of guys. It has leadership. Like I think Braden Chen's a good captain. I think they've got all the right associate captains. I just don't understand why it is that they can't seem to find a way to stop it. And I don't think it's like a goaltending issue. Like I think goaltending's been fine for this team overall this year. Defensively, I think they've been better, though we'll talk about later on the show. The numbers don't necessarily support that completely, but it is something that they have to figure out, and they have to probably figure it out this year because you're right. This is a retool. You would expect this from a retooling team, but this is one of those things that you need to find a way to find an identity of how do you avoid this from happening so you can take that next step next year and the years to come.
The other area that they have to fix is their game against the Western Conference. They're undefeated against the Eastern Conference this season, and they beat some good teams. They shut out the Tampa Bay Lightning. They beat the New Jersey Devils. They did beat the Buffalo Sabres. That's a good offensive team, as we saw. But that's not going to carry you into the postseason. What's going to carry you into the postseason is finding ways to be solid against the Western Conference, specifically the Central Division. They're 4-7-1 against the Central Division this season, which the victories that they had against the Central Division was 2 against the Arizona Coyotes, 1 against the Colorado Avalanche, and then who was the other team that they beat in the Central? Why am I blanking on this one? You beat Arizona twice, you beat Colorado.
Winnipeg? Didn't they beat Winnipeg?
No, they lost to Winnipeg every time. Regardless, they also lost to Minnesota. You lost to Nashville. But against the Pacific Division and the Western Conference as a whole, you're 7-10-1 with this, which is 15 points. That's a .416 save or win percentage. You're going to have to find a way. If you stay on that pace, you're talking about maybe picking up a total of 75 to 78 points. It's not going to be good enough to get to the playoffs. Now, I know the Western Conference is down this season. You might be able to sneak into one of the wild card spots with 82, 83, maybe 84 points. But if you're not finding ways to pick up those 4-point swings in the Central Division, specifically against Minnesota and Nashville, you're done with Arizona. You're not making the playoffs because those teams are going to be better than you. So Western Conference play has to be a massive area of improvement, and tonight you take on one of the toughest ones.
Yeah, it was interesting when I was looking at the numbers because I knew they had struggled against the Central Division going into that Coyotes game, but I didn't realize those struggles had kind of preluded the rest of the Western Conference as well because you're right, that .416 points percentage, we were kind of running the numbers in the office. You play 50 games against the West. That's 100 available points. That means you're on pace for 41 points right now against the West. That means you got to make up a lot of points against Eastern Conference teams. And look, they're off to a great start against the East. They're 5-0 against the East, which technically means they're on pace to go 32-0. Don't think that's likely, but that they got to find a way to kind of figure things out against the Western Conference. And look, they've been in a lot of these games. I mean, you mentioned some of those losses. I mean, they are 0-2 against Winnipeg, but Winnipeg's played fairly well. You know, they nearly beat Dallas. I mean, they got to overtime against the Stars and got a point in that game. Seattle, they've beaten once. Like the Sharks is the one that they probably should circle and go, what the hell happened there? But that is something that they're going to have to do. They're going to have to start playing better against the Western Conference to climb it back. I don't want to say climb back into the playoffs. They are in the playoffs. But to really solidify themselves in this Western Conference race. And we said this last week. You know, you go on a 6-game winning streak, you may be able to just separate yourself from the rest of the pack because the whole Western Conference outside of the top tier teams is just a muddle middle right now with barely teams floating around 500.
Yeah, here's the problem. Like Nashville's had their 6-game win streak. Minnesota's right now 3-0 since John Hines has been hired. Arizona's now on a 4-game win streak. All of these teams are in win streaks. You have yet to put together more than 3 wins this season. So you're going to have to, and look no further than the month of December. You got Vegas two times this week, then Chicago, then you play Dallas, Chicago, Dallas, Colorado, all in the month of December. Sprinkled in some Eastern Conference games. That's exactly what's going to have to take place. You're going to have to go on a string of wins against Western Conference teams, specifically against the Central, but Pacific is fine if you're fighting for a wild card spot. And you're going to have to find a way to do that against some of the tougher opponents like this Vegas Golden Knights team. But one thing's been very evident for the Blues. After a bad game, they show up with a good game, which is probably part of the reason why they've been so frustrating this season. He's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Speaking of frustration, the Cardinals have been frustrated over the last few seasons with their off seasons. Does that change this week at the winter meetings? Well, John Mozeliak's making it seem like it's going to. We'll touch on that next year on 101 ESPN.
football on ESPN. Steelers and Patriots. Pregame at 6:30. Kickoff at 7:15. The NFL lives on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
MU to head down to Dallas. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Following a 10-2 regular season, the football Tigers are bound for the Cotton Bowl. Coach Eli Drinkwitz will guide his squad against Ohio State on December 29th, making Missouri's New Year's Six Bowl dream a reality. Undefeated FSU, meanwhile, not on cloud nine. The Noles and their 13-0 mark left out of the college football playoff in favor of Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama. Hockey. The Blues have a late one on the docket this evening in Vegas. Puck drop unfolding at 9 p.m. on 101 ESPN. St. Louis lost to Arizona on Saturday 4-1. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new roads and shop 24/7 at londoff.com and londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. 314-399-9646. That is our Air Comfort Service text line. You can text us your questions. We'll get to our questions and answers segment coming up in about 10 minutes. You can also check out our YouTube studio cams at YouTube 101 ESPN STL, brought to you by the Air Alliance team. So the winter meeting's officially underway in Nashville. Derek Gould alongside many others with the Post-Dispatch, John Denton, Katie Wu, all in Nashville. And the reports come out pretty hot the first day, with the Cardinals being very vocal about adding bullpen arms. John Morosi tweeted earlier today, the Cardinals remain willing to move one of their controllable outfielders after adding 3 starting pitchers. They aren't necessarily committed to acquiring immediate rotation return in help. So that's the pitching side of it, moving your outfielders, although you're not getting any rotation help is what he said. So that's probably not a good thing, but they got to get bullpen arms, T-Bone.
Exactly.
And Derek Gould in the Post-Dispatch this morning, quote, the Cardinals still would like to add at least one reliever to the high leverage back end of their bullpen, and their goal is to add 2. They've been vocal in the free agent market. They've met with agents, and of course, as JP Morosi is mentioning, they're in the trade conversations with multiple outfielders. So now it gets us to the point of, okay, who are these bullpen arms? Because we've talked a lot about how you have to add a high leverage arm, maybe 2 guys to round out this bullpen if you're not going out there to get that ace. I personally don't feel like that makes it a successful offseason because I still think you need one more guy at the top of your rotation.
I'd agree with that.
But if you look at the names that are at least available via free agency, you've got Phil Maton, who good numbers last year, but I don't know if he screams back end of the bullpen for you. Hector Neris, who does scream back into the bullpen, but you're kind of paying on past success, and you're not sure if bullpen arms can continue. You've got the reunion of Jordan Hicks. You've got a couple of other guys like Adam Ottavino and Craig Kimbrell, and then you're talking about going over to Japan after that Yuki Matsui. Those are the free agent players available to you, and I got to be honest, T-Bone, all of those guys, although intriguing, they don't scream back end of the bullpen help that Derek Gould alluded to.
See, I disagree with that. I think they do scream back end bullpen help. Now, I don't think they will be viewed as like an 8th inning arm, but I don't think the Cardinals are necessarily looking for that, and I don't think they necessarily need that. I think what they are looking for is someone that can pitch in the 6th, 7th inning role and kind of serve as the guy that is the right-handed version of what they're hoping JoJo Romero will be this year. Mm-hmm. And I think Maton can be that. I think Hector Neris, is going to outprice himself. I mean, this is a guy that declined an $8 million option to become a free agent, which means he believes he's probably going to make 10 to 12. And for being honest, Cardinals, if they're going to get 2 bullpen arms, can't be shopping in that market. I think when you look at what they're looking for, I think Maton makes sense, who's got basically 2 years of success, but has been very good since going to the Houston Astros. You can invest in that on probably a 1-2 year deal, right around that $5 to $8 million range. And I think they're going to have a lot of interest in this Yuki Matsui coming over from Japan.
I think that's where you have to start. Yuki Matsui would be the most intriguing to me, and I know it's the uncertainty and the unknown, but he provides a lot of swing and miss stuff, at least they've talked about with him. And he's a lefty reliever. See, that's the hard part. I don't know. You always need lefties, but it feels like you have a lot of guys that are lefties in your bullpen this year. When you're talking about Romero, you're talking about Zach Thompson or Steven Matz, one of those two guys. You're talking about Matthew Liberatore. You got a lot of lefties, but this is a guy that you'd say, okay, he's got the swing and miss stuff. Maton and Neris both also have swing and miss stuff.
Yeah. And this is what I'm glad to see, is that they're connected to guys that have swing and miss. I can't tell you how infuriated I'd be today if we were talking about a guy that was like, well, they're looking at a guy that gets ground balls and strikes out 5 per 9. Oh, my God, then you didn't learn anything. But no, they have.
Gives you innings.
No, but they have learned because they are looking for the swing and miss. And you're right about the lefty. Matsui just makes sense because there's no posting fee. I don't think he's going to cost a ton. And as you said, he's got swing and miss stuff, at least based over in what his numbers show in Japan. And you don't know how that'll translate, but you think maybe it could. And he's saved a lot of games over there as well. So he's an intriguing name. I think they're going to be targeting right-handers, but I could see a scenario where they say, hey, look, Matsui's got maybe the best stuff. We think it's going to translate. Who cares if he's left-handed? If he can get both lefties and righties out, let's make a deal happen.
Guys, I think these are all intriguing names for a variety of different reasons, and the name Hector Neris has been bandied about, obviously, for a long time. We know what he did previously with the Philadelphia Phillies. He has closing experience. I would contend, though, at age 34 in 2023, he's coming off the best season, actually, in his major league career. He possesses the swing and miss stuff, and yet when you look at the ERA, when you look at a lot of the outlying numbers, how did he still dance around 31 walks to compile that 1.71 ERA? It's because of the top-end velo. And similarly, Maton, he may not possess the back end of the bullpen, the sheer stuff, but Tanner, you reflected on this earlier. In the last 2 years with Houston, progressively being eased into more and more high-leverage situations, this is somebody who could project at any point, at any juncture between the 6th and the 8th inning. And I'm not even resistant to the notion of maybe bringing back an Adam Ottavino, because quite frankly, you have certainty there. And yes, you're still talking about maybe being on the wrong side of 30, but this is somebody, with the exception of the COVID season, the shortened season of 2020, since 2017, he has never failed to appear in at least 63 games. You need certainty, you need reliability in this bullpen, and all of the guys we've referenced, not even including what could be transpiring there overseas with that acquisition, give you precisely that.
I would much rather see them go the trade market for a bullpen arm. And I don't know who that is because, frankly, we don't have the names like we do with the free agency. I don't mind any of these guys that we've talked about, but I feel like you've got assets that John Mozeliak talked about earlier today. Basically, they're shopping Tyler O'Neill to try and get something. Probably not going to get much there, but you've got other pieces, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, that you can shop for that bullpen arm. I feel like the upside of that bullpen help can come via trade rather than free agency.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I think there are, there's a handful, Russ, they can go. I wouldn't be shocked if they sign one and then trade for one. And it makes sense. And look, I think they could, and again, you mentioned O'Neill. Like, it's possible you could flip O'Neill for a reliever that, like, has had one good year, just like Tyler O'Neill's had one good year, and see if you can take on a project. I'm also not going to rule this out because I think it was Katie Wu mentioned this in her piece today, so credit where credit's due. The Rule 5 draft is this week at the winter meetings. And as we know, the Rule 5 draft, they drafted Wilking Rodriguez last year, and the way it works,
massive
you draft
helper.
a guy. Huge pickup last year. The way it works, you draft a guy, he has to be on the 40-man roster all season. If you try to send him down to the minor leagues, then you have to offer him back to his team. And the Cardinals have one spot open on their roster. They have 39 players on the 40-man roster. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them make a selection, and Katie reported this in her piece. Would not be shocked if they maybe select a bullpen arm. Yeah. Look at somebody that we've never even heard of, honestly, in this room. That they select, they say, hey, this guy's peripherals look good. He wasn't protected. Let's give him a shot. And remember, they've done this before.
Yeah, they got a history of this.
They had Matt Bowman on this deal. Now, he didn't have swing and miss, but he was a good bullpen arm until Matheny broke him. So I think there's a good chance that they draft a player in the Rule 5 draft. Again, I don't have a name for you, but don't be shocked if that's something that they try this weekend, or this week, I should say, at the winter meetings.
Didn't they get John Brebbia from the Rule 5 draft, or was that just a free agent signing? I thought that was a Rule 5, but they've got a history with the Rule 5. That makes total sense. The other side of this one is still the side of the starting pitching. And I said it in the open. I still believe that if they want to have a successful offseason, they've got to go get somebody who slots in above Sonny Gray. And Tyler Glasnow's name has been the one we've talked a lot about. Dylan Cease's name has been the one that's been talked a lot about. But that might go away pretty quickly because according to John Heyman and John Morosi, there is a ton of trade interest right now in Tyler Glasnow. Also, you've got the Reds, the Orioles, the Braves, Dodgers, all circling around Dylan Cease. The starting pitchers that we deemed better than Sonny Gray to be in your rotation, it seems like 5, 6, 7 other teams are going after these guys. And to be frank, you're not going to get either of these players in a trade if there's multiple teams going after them, unless you're putting Nolan Gorman in that deal.
Well, I don't know if that's true for Glass now. I think it's true for Cease.
If other teams are going to be willing to pay the price and the desperation move to get Tyler Glass now, like I think the Cincinnati Reds that do need starting pitching, I don't know if they're going to force you to up the ante if you want Tyler Glass now.
I think when you look at the Glass now trade, I would be stunned if it ends up costing any team the level of a Nolan Gorman, because he's a 1-year rental that makes $25 million that you can only pencil in for like maybe 20 starts.
Last part of scheme.
I would be shocked if he ends up getting the haul that we're talking about. Now, what I will say is, like, I wouldn't doubt if they were like, when we see the deal, that we go, okay, now it probably would have cost the Cardinals an Alec Burleson, or it would have cost the Cardinals a Thomas Ajayci type player. If that's the case, then look, I would probably make the argument for, like, hey, I would have pulled that deal off in a heartbeat, because Glasnow's a difference maker when he's healthy, and he gives you not just a number one starter, but a guy that can take the ball in game one of the playoffs, and you now have a playoff rotation. Glasnow's the one that I'm going to be curious to see what his market develops at the winter meetings, because I'm still not ruling out the Cardinals in that market. The Cease one, man, there's multiple teams. Let's just be honest. Gorman will be on the table. I don't think the Cardinals will have interest in doing that, and most of the day, they don't have interest in trading from their major league roster. So if that's the case, probably out. I'm still not ruling out the Glasnow one. I think they can make a Glasnow deal still happen. I think it may cost a little bit more, but I don't think it'll get to the point of Nolan Gorman.
I think when you talk about Tampa Bay Rays and it costing more for the Cardinals, that's where they back out of that conversation, because I still think that's when the jitters set in for John Mozeliak, rather than being aggressive and saying, yeah, let's pull the trigger on this one.
And look, if that's the case, I'm just going to say it, like, hey, man, you gotta let that go. You got to let go. It is time to move on from the mistake of the Randy Arozarena trade, and cannot be fearful of pulling the trigger on such deals.
Well, on the Randy Arozarena train, you want it, right? Because they're going to trade Randy Arozarena away.
Exactly.
That's what the reports are, and you got Matthew Liberatore out of it. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario, 314-399-9646. That is our Air Comfort Service text line. You send us questions, we'll answer them next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
for this week's Fastlane Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Show off your football knowledge and see if you can top the Fastlane and the dudes from the Rizzuto Show on the point. For this week's top score, it's the Fastlane and the Riz Show throwing down all football season long in the Pick'em Challenge. Enter your picks for this week right now at 101ESPN.com.
Refreshed by Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL. Easy to Sunday, easy to enjoy.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Time for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. We'll start with this one. Guys from the 636, who do you believe are the 4 best teams that should be in the college football playoffs?
The 4 that we got.
No.
Michigan, Washington.
Iowa, Tulane.
Oh, my God. Iowa.
Mizzou.
Iowa should just shut down the football program. I mean, they're basically non-existent anyways.
I think it's, well, they don't got the basketball program to fall back on either. Michigan, Washington. I would go Alabama, Georgia. If I was picking the 4 best teams, those would be my 4 best teams.
Yeah.
I think Alabama's better than Texas, even if Texas did beat Alabama. I think Georgia should be in that. And I know it's 2 SEC teams, but if you're going best teams, it's them.
I think that's fair, and I still think there's an argument for Oregon, honestly. I mean, their 2 losses are to Washington, and both games they lost by, I think a combined, 7
They
points?
just didn't look the way that they have looked against Washington that game on the weekend. Like, some of the decisions that Bo Nix was making felt like he was forcing it. They felt like a TCU team that just didn't win.
Yeah, it felt to me, because I think you're right about them forcing it. To me, it felt like, man, the moment they got down early, it was like, oh my God, here we go again. And it just kind of panic is what it felt like to me. But I think there's an argument for Oregon. I would still say the 4 best teams are the 4 that we got, because I think Texas is still a really good football team. I think their loss to Oklahoma was just a blip on the radar. And they got Oklahoma's best game because it's the Red River rivalry. Of course they're going to get their best game.
Interesting remark about Nix, because all of the stars aligned for that to be his signature Heisman game. And yet here we go again. It's time to give Washington its flowers for having defeated Oregon twice, for Michael Penix having done the job that he was able to pull off. As far as the top 4 teams overall are concerned, you still cannot convince me that Georgia's does not belong in that crop. It's Alabama, it's Georgia, obviously Michigan, despite having really not beaten anyone of consequence in the Big Ten this season, is there. And really by a hair, it's kind of splitting hairs as far as Washington versus Texas, in my opinion. All the respect in the world to the Longhorns, you as a quarterback beating Alabama earlier in the season, but quite honestly, the Pac-10, or the Pac-12 rather, the overall strength of schedule there, I'd be hard-pressed to actually exclude Washington at the benefit of Texas this year, guys. I really would.
From the 636 for questions and answers, what are the odds the Cardinals leave the winter meetings with another frontline starting pitcher? Let's just say another starting pitcher, because I don't think they already have a frontline starting pitcher. Sorry, that was mean. That was mean. That was mean. They do. They just need somebody else.
I just want you to know you suck, okay?
I know.
Always negative about the Cardinals.
It's a Monday, man. What are you talking about? I said that the Blues aren't consistent.
Yeah, but we all knew that. You're just coming to reality now.
Am I?
I said it.
Maybe I've been in reality for the Cardinals, and you need to get there.
No. Just because I was off on the over-under win total last year by a lot.
Off on a lot with that one. I'll put it at 20%.
That's kind of where I was.
I'll put it at 20% because I
think really the one is Glass now.
Yeah, and I just don't think they're going to be willing to trade the pieces that are required to get Tyler Glass now. I know they're not going to do it for Cease. I'm not sure they're going to do it for Glass now if other teams are in the bidding war.
It's tough because, again, I don't think Glass now is going to cost a ton because there are so many. One, he makes $25 million. He's injury prone. 1-year rental. I don't think he's going to cost a lot, but I could see where it ends up costing like a top 10 prospect or a top 5 prospect in a team system that the Cardinals balk at. But I would still go 20%. I think that's basically where it's at.
Inevitably, it still feels as if the talks will heat up. You just do not know if the Cardinals are willing to wade into those waters until proven otherwise. I think you're being a little generous with the number there. I'd go at 10%.
And the goal, too, real quick, by the way, is they are truly trying to get a reliever at the meetings. Like,
yeah, and that's why I put it so low.
Yeah, they're so focused. Like, if you ask this question, like, what are the odds they come away with a top-end reliever that fits into the back of the bullpen?
At 90%.
Yeah, I'd go like 80, 90%. That's clearly their goal going into the winter meetings.
Yeah. One more from the 314. Guys, a ton of trade conversation around the NHL for defensemen. Do you see the Blues jumping into any of those waters before the end of the season? I think you check if you're the Blues. I don't think you're one of the teams that are aggressive for it. So, of course, Noah Hannafin's name is the one that they're probably referencing. But Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast earlier today said that San Jose might be listening on Mario Ferraro. And I'm not just picking him because his name sounds like my last name, but he's a left-handed defenseman who's 25 years old, and he's under contract for 3 more years at like $3.25 million. And he's a guy playing in the top pair for San Jose. So I think there's going to be a lot available at the trade deadline. I don't think the Blues jump into those waters. I think if they're available in the offseason, that's where the Blues kind of jump in, because big picture for the Blues team will be more of, okay, we have to isolate this area of weakness, and that area of weakness is defense.
Yeah, I don't see them making this kind of move at the deadline, because I think you're right. I think it's something that they do in the offseason, and it's twofold. I think, one, I think this season has proven, like Army said going into the year, it was something along the lines of like, hey, we're going to find out what this defense is. Look, I think we know at this point, this defensive group's not going to cut it for a winning window. They've got certain guys that will work, like Falk and Parayko will work. Outside of that, I don't think there's a guy that I can point to that I say, yeah, this is the guy. And then secondarily, like, they're up against the cap. Like, it would be a lot of maneuvering to make it work this year. So I think it is something that they will definitely address in the offseason, just like they tried this offseason by trying to acquire Sanheim.
Speaking of that defense, it's pretty evident that the Blues have taken a step backwards on the defensive side of the puck. But overall, have they really gotten better this season? We'll discuss that next year on 101 ESPN.
WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
As I said earlier to you guys today, I know our defense gets a lot of scrutiny from the media, but we need them to play back to the best of their capability, and that's our focus now to get into training camp.
So that was President of Hockey Operations Doug Armstrong back in Nashville the night of the draft, talking about the Blues defense, and alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. I teased the question, has the defense improved overall this season? And that cut told you the mindset of the Blues coming into this season was, hey, our defense was awful last year. We expect them to improve from what they played last year. And if they don't, then things will make sense and changes will happen that next offseason. Right now, the numbers don't look good for the Blues. Matt DeFranks had a great piece on the Post-Dispatch talking about the defense struggling compared to this Vegas team that they're going to be taking on later on tonight. So from DeFrank's piece, when the Blues defense appeared more stingy in the early going, averaging 2.57 goals allowed per game in the first 14, the overall picture paints a similar one to last year. The Blues ranked 22nd last year in shot attempts, 29th this year. 24th in shots on goal last year, 30th this year. Scoring chances, 27th, 25th this year. High danger chances, 23rd last year, 30th this year. Expected goals, 29th last year, 28th this year. Goals allowed per game, 3.65 last year, 3.17 this year. That's 16th in the National Hockey League. Now, I can understand people questioning the defense if it's really improved. And frankly, it doesn't look like they are. It looks like they're resorting back to the way they played last season, where you've got a lot of active bodies going after loose pucks, but there's not any structure to what they're trying to do. And I thought Craig Berube broke it down great on DeFrank's piece, talking about the one goal that Arizona scored on Saturday night, to where Torrey Krug was going aggressive for the puck, which he left his quadrant and there wasn't anybody covering it. So it feels like they're breaking away. But it's hard for me to sit here and agree that the defense is back to how bad that they were last year. Because the first portion of the season, I understand it's just a portion, but for 14 games, this defense looked drastically different with the exact same personnel. Goaltending saved you a couple of times, absolutely. And now you're in a stretch of 9 games where they look back to themselves. I would lean more on the side of this Blues team figured it out, and now they're getting way too loose and way too sloppy. The real question is going to be, do they get back to the way that their defense performed? That's going to be the measuring stick if this team's defense improved going into the offseason.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I don't know if they ever really figured it out. I think that was more the blip on the radar, in my opinion, than it was the Blues figured it out and now have just gotten away from it. To me, it's a lot of like what it was last year, and different scheme. Just to be clear, different scheme. But remember, last year, they had a shutout against Edmonton early on, and we were like, whoa, look at this team. And then they fell apart from there. So I think what we're learning now, and I think you said this perfectly, is the Blues are just kind of stuck with a couple bad contracts, and they're trying to buy time. And I think these numbers fully support that, to where, is the defense better? Yeah, in terms of like goals allowed per game right now, it is. But the underlying numbers are the same, if not worse, than they were from last year. And basically what that tells me is, yeah, right now you're getting better goaltending than you got last year at this point, which means, and as we've talked about, and I think we talked about it Friday at Centene, is the dam about to break? Bennington's had a couple of games recently. Hofer's been iffy of late. Also, he gave up 3 goals against Arizona over the weekend. And look, not all those are on the goaltenders. Like when they're in the spots Arizona scored their goals from this weekend, yeah, okay, when they get those decent looks, it's going to be tougher, and you're asking a lot of your goaltender. I think what we're seeing is just the confirmation that Doug Armstrong was looking for coming into the season. Was it a one-off for the defense last year, and will they rebound and take that next step defensively, or was last year kind of what they were as a group? And I think we're finding out that the defense is more of what they were last year. It's just a different scheme, and it's masking some of their inabilities a little bit, but not enough to where you can look at this group and go, yeah, this is the defensive group we're going to have when we enter that next winning window of Blues hockey.
Yeah, and I think the Blues know that. I think Doug Armstrong knows that. And frankly, I think the players probably know that this isn't the group that they're going to be going long-term with. But the issue here seems to be that it's a team that knows the structure works, but it's a team that gets away from what works, if that makes sense. Like, they know that if they're playing this condensed quadrant hockey that Craig Berube and Mike Weber have established, they're going to bore teams so much and keep them to the outside that teams are going to just take the shots and the Blues are going to be able to play it correctly. And Berube talked with Curbs Saturday in pregame, and Curbs asked Craig, when you say your team's on their game, what does that look like? And he said, clean zone exits out of our defensive zone, put the puck in, and go to work. And the zone exits are the part that aren't clean right now. That's where this defense seems to fall short. The structure can be there. It gets very loose, but as soon as the loose puck is there, you see players going after it. You see players scrambling and not going back into their position. The way I look at it is I go big picture here. 9 games have not looked pretty. But you put those 9 games into the 14 games and you say those 14 games, they figured something out. Those just didn't happen by chance. You didn't just shut out the Tampa Bay Lightning just because. You found a way to eliminate that type of team. Right now, it seems like the team is pushing so hard for offense and so hard for those odd man rushes and fast play up the ice that the defense has taken a back seat. And I think the mindset now has to be, how do we get back in the front seat with our defense?
So I think to your point there of like those 14 games, and look, I think there have been some games this season where I would say, you know what, the defense was really good that night. But I think some of those games that were including into that 14 games that you just mentioned there, I think some of those can be labeled, yeah, the goalie saved their bacon. Like, I truly believe that. I think we got confirmation that I don't even think it came from the Blues necessarily. I think we got confirmation this scheme works in the NHL. Why? Because the team the Blues are going to be playing tonight, the Vegas Golden Knights, they proved this scheme works.
Absolutely.
So the Blues are going to try and implement it, and they're trying it with this group because they think it can, because in a zone, they think it can mask some of the defensive inabilities of some of the forwards and the defensemen. But I think as the numbers are showing you that, and I know people hate to hear this, but some of the expected numbers and the advanced numbers are telling you is, hey, yeah, they're still kind of the same defense they were last year. Just right now your goaltending is providing the saves that you need, which, hey, look, you can get into the playoffs if your goaltending is going to play at the level it's played so far this year. But there's also going to be the chance that it ends up breaking. The dam's going to break. Bennington's going to go through a rut. And if that happens, that's when I have some concerns about the St. Louis Blues team. I think the scheme itself will work for the Blues in the long run, with better pieces being put into place.
And so you mentioned Vegas, and into Frank's piece, he pointed out how the Blues are going to see what the ideal image of their defensive structure is supposed to look like tonight, because Vegas plays this way. And it's not because the Blues copied off of Vegas. Craig Berube said it's because this is the way Mike Weber coaches defense. But a lot of teams copied off of Vegas. It's not a bad thing to do that. I've been asked the question, how do you get this defense to that level? And it's players. It's personnel. And I do think that this is just kind of biding your contracts until you can get certain guys in to play to this level. This is why I'm so aggressive on the go after a Noah Hannafin front, because Vegas is big. And Vegas, when you're a big team, can play this style of hockey because you kill plays with your size and your stick length. Now, you kill these plays also because your forwards are responsible on the defensive side, and some of that comes into play for this Blues struggling. But if you watch Vegas tonight and you see 6'6", 6'4", 6'3", 6'2",
my goodness, they've got tree trunks.
They've got size that kills plays fast, and that's the Blues' focus. And frankly, you can't get to that point until you have the right personnel in place for it.
And though that I think we're seeing that the defense it wasn't a one-off from last year, I do think that there are some positives that have been taken away from this year. And one of them goes to Parayko. I think Parayko's looked excellent this year so
Parayko
far.
and Falk have been the exact... Well, Parayko's improved, but Parayko and Falk have been the two guys that if I'm a Blues front office, I look at and I say, these are the guys we're building around.
Exactly. And that is how you get to that Vegas point. Maybe not to the point where you've got all those tree trunks that they've got that you just listed off, but you say, okay, we found our Colton Parayko. We found Justin Falk. Who's the guys that they're going to pair with? That third pairing, like, you can kind of mix and match and find guys that will fit in there. Like, I think Scandella's been fine for the most part this year.
A perfectly acceptable third pair defenseman.
Perunovich and Tucker have been okay. Like, they haven't been as impressive, but that third pairing I'm not as worried about. It's the top four. How do you figure out the top four defensively? I think you've got the two guys in Parayko and Falk. Now you've got to find their partners. That, to me, is how you get to being at that Vegas level.
Watch how Vegas plays tonight. Their structure is so tight, it doesn't break. And as much as it's the defense, it's the forwards as well. They play a system where there's got to be responsibility from top to bottom. That play that I referenced, that Berube referenced in Matt DeFrank's piece, where you had Krug pinch for that loose puck and the forward doesn't cover that spot. Same thing happened in that Buffalo Sabres game where you got way too wide out and you let Zach Benson just stand right in front of the net in the high danger slot. They weren't doing that in the first 14 games. That's why the defense looked good and improved in those first 14 games. So, yes, you could talk about the defense all you want. Berube referenced that Krug probably shouldn't have gone after that one. That's the forward's responsibility. There's got to be more responsibility in the own zone by all five players. And if you break away from that structure, it's going to look exactly like it did last year. So some of this is just on the guys sticking to the actual system if they want it to work.
And I'm glad you said all five guys, because though this has felt like a very negative segment, again, I think there are very much things that can be taken away from the system, even though the numbers are kind of showing what we thought from last year's team. I think guys like Parayko have played better. I think Falk has proven that. I mean, I thought Falk was decent last year too, but they have proven that they are answers here defensively long term. I think you're seeing some answers from the forwards as well. You're seeing more defensive-minded play from a Jordan Kyrou, who was a guy that you wanted to see step up. Like, there still have been some good positives. I just think in general, when you look at the defense as a whole, you have learned, okay, most of the pieces we have are not the pieces we need moving forward.
He's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, NFL quick hitters, including one team that proved they're the top dogs and nobody else is on that level. We'll get to that next on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a new Jamie jersey giveaway. This week, Jamie Rivers is giving away a signed Pavel Buchnevich Blues jersey. Get entered to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Courtesy of Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
All right, NFL Week 13 nearly in the book as the game will be taking place later on tonight. Cincinnati and who's the other team going with them? Cincinnati and
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, thank you. So nobody really cares about that game. The big game that was played.
Hey, now.
The big game that was played, of course, was the 49ers and Eagles, and we can ish on the Chiefs because BK's not here right now, but the game that mattered this week was the Eagles and 49ers because that was supremacy in the NFC. And frankly, that was just a good old spanking because Philadelphia didn't look like a team that even had a chance in that game. What was it at halftime? Halftime, it was 14-6, and then the game wrapped up with 28-13 outscoring San Francisco to Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, mind you, I think it's pretty simple, boys. San Francisco just showed they're the top dog in the NFC, and Philadelphia, albeit has a better record, Philadelphia is the second in the race right there with Dallas.
Yeah, I think they showed by far they're the best team in the NFC, and can I be honest, maybe the best team in the NFL?
Yeah, well, agreed. Nobody in the AFC comps to any of the top three in the NFC.
Like, I think there are really good teams in the AFC still, but man, San Francisco going on the road and just beating the tar out of the Philadelphia Eagles. And look, some of this you could kind of tell was coming for the Eagles because, like we've talked about it, though they had only lost one game, offensively, things just didn't seem right. Defensively, they'd been okay. And they barely survived the Chiefs, and they barely survived the Bills in the last 2 weeks. And now it all just kind of came all at once, and it just hits them, and they go against that 49ers team. San Francisco's just got too many dang weapons, man. And they got a great defense. Like, I don't know how you beat them. I think that win didn't just solidify themselves as the best team in the NFC, and we'll see if they can surpass the Eagles for home field advantage. I think it proved they're the best team in the NFL.
Tanner, you're right. Philadelphia had been straddling that proverbial line for a few weeks, and San Francisco, so many people were quick to point out after last year's NFC title game, the celebrated Josh Johnson game. Well, what if San Francisco had been playing with its full deck? We see, in terms of the dimensions that this offense has, whether it is McCaffrey absolutely running roughshod over the opposition, the threats that Samuel and Ayuk as well as Kittle present in the vertical game, Brock Purdy, in my estimation at least, is doing nothing but making more and more bigger throws, obviously, as he matures and evolves as a quarterback. To me, this is also the sort of team, it will travel. The style travels wherever. This coaching staff, this organization has no qualms about possibly going on the road if need be in the playoffs, but we still have a few weeks left in the regular season. Wouldn't surprise me one bit to see the 49ers really snare that number one seed and have the Eagles fall another time or two.
Yeah, to me, that game had nothing to do with the offense. I mean, the offense I've known San Francisco is great. It was everything with the defense. I mean, the defense basically made Jalen Hurts look average, made A.J. Brown look average, found ways to just eliminate Philadelphia from top to bottom. I know the offense is also awesome with San Francisco. I don't know if I brag about Brock Purdy more than I just brag about Kyle Shanahan for how great he is with what he does.
By the way, at what point are we going to give Purdy credit?
Apparently right now, because he's the NFL MVP favorite at plus 300. Hurts is plus 350 and Dak is plus 350. To me, that's crazy. To me, Dak should still be the favorite for MVP. Dak just backed it up with another really good performance. He's better than Brock in completion rating, yards, more touchdowns, less interceptions. He's been sacked less of the time than Brock Purdy has. I think Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback, but I think Brock Purdy is the beneficiary of an awesome coach and incredible weapons every single place you can ask for. I mean, Dak is, I would say, handcuffed by a okay coach in Mike McCarthy.
So I agree with your stance on McCarthy there, but I think Dak and Brock are fairly similar. And what I mean by that is I think if you took away one of his best weapons in CD Lamb, Dak's not even Dak is how I view Brock Purdy.
But he's got one of those great weapons. Brock can turn to Christian McCaffrey. He could turn to George Kittle. He can turn to Brandon Ayuk. He could turn to Deebo Samuel. He's got every single area you look for. Who's the other guy if you take CD Lamb out?
Fair enough, but as so frequently happens in MVP voting, awards voting, the starting quarterback, the leader for the undisputed, we would all agree in this room right now, best team in the NFL is whom? It's Brock Purdy. Therefore, he's the front runner.
But Brock Purdy was terrible for a couple of weeks, and San Francisco still found ways to win.
Why? Because he was missing part of his weapons, too.
Yeah.
Because that was when
Samuel was out, and Christian McCaffrey.
And Trent Williams, too, his left tackle was out. So, and that's why, look, you're right about Dak. I mean, he does have, one true weapon, but I think we've seen at times.
That's impressive to me, too, when you have one guy and you still find ways to be a top quarterback in the league, only throwing to that guy, where teams' defenses are planning to cover him.
And granted, Pollard hasn't been nearly the caliber of back of McCaffrey this season, or even what you expected when he took over for Elliott full time.
Is that his name? Who's the backup running back?
I have no idea.
Hold on, I gotta look this up now.
Did you say Dinwiddie?
Dinwiddie. It's like Spencer Dinwiddie or something.
No, he's a point guard for the Nets.
Isn't that a
I don't even know how the hell I knew that.
Fantasy streaming option.
Rico Dowdy. I was close.
You weren't even close at all.
I was close with this one. Okay, speaking of weapons, as we do our NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario, the Texans just took a massive blow. Now, nobody thought the Texans were winning the Super Bowl, but frankly, everybody stinks in the AFC, so maybe they had a shot to get to the Super Bowl. Not anymore. Tank Dell sounds like he's going to be out for the rest of the season. Fractured tibia, the reports are. That's a huge shot at the Houston Texans offense. They still got Nico Collins. Noah Brown was back, so that's at least good for them. But, man, having Tank Dell for C.J. Stroud has been the best thing that rookie quarterback could have asked for. And you take him out of the equation, it's going to be tough for Houston to stay in this race.
Yeah, I think this is a massive blow to the Texans. I think they now went from a team that can make the playoffs. And, honestly, I think they probably would have made the playoffs, too. Yeah, I just don't see it now because Tank Dell had solidified himself as a number one wide receiver. And now that he's out, look, I think C.J. Stroud has proven that he can be a quarterback that could eventually be a guy that we talk about that can lift the weapons up around him. Like we talk about Mahomes when you look at the cast of receivers outside of Kelsey that's with him. He's tried. It hasn't worked out this year because they're just terrible. But how those kind of quarterbacks, those elite quarterbacks, can take a wide receiver room and just take it to the next level. I think Stroud's proven to be that guy, but I don't think he's there just yet. I think this Tank Dell injury is huge. I think the Texans now miss the playoffs because of it.
Here's what I worry about if I am a Texans enthusiast. Number one, the defense, the much ballyhooed defense. D'Amico Ryans was supposed to bring so much credibility on that side of the football. It hasn't been there for the majority of the season. And now, Tanner, you stated obviously in Stroud you have somebody who can elevate so many different players at that position, but you lose your bona fide number one. Nico Collins, sure, he stepped up yesterday. He compiled nearly 200 yards. But then who's next? Do you really count on Noah Brown to be that guy week after week? Is he going to attract a lot of attention from the opposing defense? Robert Woods isn't even close to the guy he was either in Tennessee or in Los Angeles. You have depleted resources, and even more importantly, I contend that the running game there, as we segue and transition deeper and deeper into December, virtually no running game to assist Stroud. Suspicious defense, that's going to be the big-time bugaboo.
One more team I got to ask, because I don't know what the hell to do with them. Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. 5 weeks ago, I said Jordan Love is not the quarterback. Frankly, everybody, Green Bay was saying that he's not the quarterback. Since then, over 1,000 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 106 QB rating, and in those games, a victory against the Rams, a 4-point loss to the Steelers, victory against the Chargers, victory against the Lions, and victory against the Chiefs. And he's putting up those numbers against some decent defenses. I don't know what to make of Jordan Love, and frankly, I think the Green Bay Packers don't know what to make.
I think he's proven you got to run it back another year at least. I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at the rest of the NFL. Like, God, watching the NFL this weekend was brutal.
Yeah.
I think I counted 10 teams.
Betting on him was too.
I think it was 10 to 12 teams this weekend had either their backup quarterback or were a team that we would define as, looking for another quarterback. I think you run it back another year because they showed the numbers on the Sunday night broadcast last night. At this point, or before last night's game, at that point in Jordan Love's career, same amount of touchdowns, same amount of passing yards as what Aaron Rodgers had done in the same amount of games in his first season. So I think you run it back with him. I think he's got a very team-friendly contract because I've seen talks about, well, do you give him a contract extension? I wouldn't do that just yet. Run it back one more year. See if you see those strides that are more improvement, because he has kind of had this roller coaster of a year this year. See if he can kind of even that out, less ups and downs. I would definitely run it back one more year with Jordan Love if I'm the Green Bay Packers. I think they got a shot to make the playoffs in the NFC.
They do, all of a sudden, in that division in particular. Now, last night at Lambeau Field, this is not to take away from Jordan Love. He threw up a few prayers, and those prayers were answered. Nonetheless, he defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. He was able to enact a little bit of a revenge there, and I like what he is doing, guys, in spite of also not having a true ground game on which to rely. Aaron Jones, he's been compromised for the entirety of this season. Dillon doesn't have the same wiggle coming out of the backfield, but his entire wide receiving core, when you talk about Watson, Dobbs, now Wicks is coming on as well, you have nothing but first and second year receivers. If you allow the program, if you allow the system to grow together and maintain that continuity, who knows what this team could legitimately do as soon as 2024 in the NFC North.
That's our NFL quick hitters. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, John Mozeliak talked earlier today on MLB Network Radio and made it very clear where one outfielder stands with this Cardinals team. We'll discuss that, and if the Cardinals have some better pieces than we're giving them credit for going into this winter meetings via trade. That's next on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, and her team out at Allstate. I saw Tracy post about this, I think it was over the weekend, that rates continue to go up, and they're not talking about it with you. That's why you've got to have the proper insurance agent, because when rates rise, when certain things get a little bit different than what you're used to, you want somebody who's contacting you, letting you know, like, hey, this is happening, or hey, we can use these competitive rates to our advantage in certain areas. Get somebody that has the best customer service when it comes to the importance of the home and auto insurance. And Tracy Bibb and her team are that. You get the personal attention. They preach it's not a matter of if something happens, it's when something happens. And when it does, you want to be able to call that insurance agent for you. She's Tracy Bibb. She's there to help all the time, every time. 314-328-4260. Contact her today. Tell her I sent you, and you'll get a free non-committal quote from Tracy. She'll explain it all and walk you through the entire process. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with a First Community pre- and post-game show driven by Clement Ford. And catch every Blues home game from the First Community Terrace.
Bring out the Zamboni!
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Sin City summons note. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns, and this Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight on 101 ESPN, the Blues roll into Vegas for a 9 p.m. puck drop against the class of the Pacific Division. St. Louis suffered a 4-1 defeat at the hands of the Coyotes on Saturday. With that W, Arizona jumps ahead of the Blues in the Central standings. NFL Week 13 concluding this evening with the clash between Cincinnati and Jacksonville. San Francisco has already throttled Philadelphia 42-19, while the Packers held on to subdue the Chiefs 27-19. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
In the outfield right now, if we were to play tomorrow, it'd likely be Newt, Tommy Edman, and Walker. And so, our fourth outfielder would be Dylan Carlson. But obviously, we're going to go into camp. We're going to see what that looks like. Tyler O'Neill is somebody that we are listening to on trades. Getting a lot of hits on our outfielders, and we're just going to see what that does for us. But overall, we like our everyday club, so we're not really in a market to try to do much there, other than see what we might be able to get for one of those players.
Hold on a minute. He said we're listening to offers on O'Neill?
Tyler O'Neill is going to be traded?
Do you need the breaking news sounder?
Oh my gosh, well, the Cardinals need to get on this ASAP before the deal comes off the table.
This is the most shocking thing I've ever heard.
Mind-blowing, that's what I think. That was John Mozeliak out at the winter meetings in Nashville on MLB Network Radio. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. He just basically told you what the opening day roster is going to look like for the outfield. It's going to be Tommy Edman in center field, Lars Nootbaar and Jordan Walker in the corners, and Dylan Carlson, at least they say, as the fourth outfielder, which means Tyler O'Neill is available. I don't know how to feel about this one, T-Bone. First of all, I don't mind the defense in the outfield. Frankly, I think that's what I was planning on. Tommy Edman in center I'm still skeptical of, but he showed he can do it. I like the fact that you got Walker and Nootbaar. Your fourth outfielder essentially is probably going to be Richie Palacios because Dylan Carlson, you don't know. But you're setting yourself up to have a good-looking outfield, and now you've got the pieces that you can go to the market with and say, how do we upgrade our bullpen? They're clearing the clog of outfielders that everybody complained about, which really wasn't an issue this past season for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised by this comment by Mo. The most surprising part of it is that Mo publicly said that they're willing to trade Tyler O'Neill.
Got to get him out somehow, right?
Can I be honest? What I think that meant? That meant like, hey, yeah, just a forewarning for everybody back there in St. Louis. We're not getting a lot for Tyler O'Neill.
He's basically been like, can you have Tyler O'Neill? You want to trade for Tyler O'Neill? Want to trade for Tyler O'Neill? Want to trade for Tyler O'Neill? He's going door to door around the hotel in Nashville.
God, what an
Mo,
image.
stop bothering us.
What an image, by the way. But yeah, like this, I'm not too surprised that that's kind of what the starting outfield is, and not really surprised that Carlson's going to be viewed as the fourth outfielder. Now, that may have been a little bit of a leverage play by Mo, kind of reading between the lines of, maybe there's a chance that they could explore the possibility of trading Carlson for a bullpen arm that's got some control. As we talked about earlier, John Morosi reported it or tweeted it out earlier today that, they're looking to potentially move on from one of their cost-controlled outfielders for some more pitching. Carlson would fit into that mix. And I could see where somebody like the Yankees, who have been reported to have interest before, and the Cardinals have said they're still interested in getting a swingman. Maybe you look at like a Clayton Beeter, who we had talked about in the Yankee system of, hey, do you trade Carlson for him? See if you can bring him in, and maybe he's a guy that comes in here and he can serve as that sixth starter / long reliever for you. It's possible they could explore that route. I think I personally would still be taking phone calls on Carlson if I were in Mo's shoes, because I think there still is a little bit of trade value there, and I think Palacios could be a fourth outfielder for you. Now, is he going to hit much? No, but Carlson didn't really either. So I don't really view that as a loss. And then Burleson, I know a lot of people don't view him as a defensive outfielder. He's fine in the corner if you had to do it. And I think he could be a guy that could serve as the quote-unquote fourth outfielder for you as well.
I think people need to come to the understanding of what the return is going to look like for a Tyler O'Neill. It's not anything that's going to help you in the bullpen right away. It's going to be something. There's not
Unless it's a project. I could see a project.
Maybe, but the project, yes, but that doesn't get you excited. You're not throwing a project into the back end of your bullpen saying, all right, we got that high leverage arm. This is going to be a guy that you hope can be something, or it's going to be somebody that you put into the minors in the next couple of years he's there for you. There's not a lot of teams crawling to get Tyler O'Neill, banging on the doors. Frankly, Mo just said it on MLB Network Radio in the beginning of winter meetings that we're actively shopping Tyler O'Neill. So I think there's need to be a little realization that there's not much coming back with Tyler O'Neill, which leads me to what you said. If you're looking to acquire a high-end back of the bullpen arm, you've got better trade assets to use than Tyler O'Neill. I know Tyler O'Neill is probably just trying to get it off the books, open up another roster spot. Maybe you're moving him actively so you can claim somebody on that Rule 5 draft that we talked about a little bit ago. But Dylan Carlson is somebody that I would still be actively looking to trade. And I know you got a ton of control on him. I know that there's the upside, and you didn't really give him a chance, the argument that everybody makes with Dylan Carlson. And I would be looking at Alec Burleson, too. You've got a fourth outfielder. If these are the three guys you're backing, then let those horses go all season long. You've got Richie Palacios, who showed you he can handle the outfield. If you need to sign somebody late into spring training to bring on as a roster invite or something to be an extra guy to compete, fine. But to upgrade your bullpen significantly, you've got better pieces than just Tyler O'Neill to trade. Dylan Carlson and Alec Burleson should be at the front of every conversation. Now, maybe you're waiting to see if Tyler Glasnow is a thing that you can get with an Alec Burleson. Maybe you're waiting to see if Toronto changes their mind about Manoah with Dylan Carlson. But I can't wait forever and hope to upgrade my bullpen by Tyler O'Neill, because that's not going to get it done this offseason.
Yeah, and I don't think they're like waiting and hoping that, we're going to play the leverage game on O'Neill, because let's just be honest, if he's on the opening day roster, there's a chance that his value can even go down more than it is because he's dealt with injuries throughout his career. Their hope for O'Neill is that they can probably trade him, get either a shot in the dark prospect, like they turned Matt Adams into Juan Yepes.
Right.
Or you're looking for like the Voit trade. Can you trade Tyler O'Neill for a Giovanni Gallegos type pitcher?
See, there was upside with Luke Voit. I don't think there's any upside with Tyler O'Neill.
There's a ton of upside with O'Neill.
I don't think teams see it.
Oh, I think they do.
You've had 3 straight years where he's been injured and barely available.
Yeah, but like we see players all the time across every sport. The Blues thought there was upside in Logan Brown, a first-round pick.
There was more upside, I would bet, by teams for Juan Yepes than Tyler O'Neill.
No chance. Because O'Neill is a guy that when he is healthy and if things work out properly, he is a MVP caliber player. Like,
that
you
was
saw
one
that
season.
But it's one season that I think is going to keep him in the league for years.
And
I
disagree.
think with him, he has all the tools, and we've talked about it. But for whatever reason, it just did not work here in St. Louis. Any team would be willing to take the risk, especially a team like the Royals. Would they be willing to trade you like a bullpen arm that they really don't need, that you kind of like the peripherals for? Yeah, absolutely. Because, again, this guy finished 8th in MVP voting in 2021. And, look, I agree that that's probably a one-off. A lot of teams across baseball are going to go, if he can do it once, he can do it again.
Nonetheless, we did see one season from start to finish from Tyler O'Neill, and that is why, gentlemen, I wonder if a Dylan Carlson, right now projected as your fourth outfielder, if he has considerably more tangible trade value than a Tyler O'Neill. I don't frankly see that, and I also frankly question whether this staff is willing to, Alex, you referenced maybe, or trying to, hopefully running with the 3 horses in the outfield from day one. You're talking about Nootbaar, Edman, in all likelihood, and Jordan Walker. The fact of the matter is that this may not be fair to state, but Lars Nootbaar right now, we haven't seen more than 117 games in a major league season from him. Do you really believe that for the entirety of this coming season, these are going to be the 3 horses with whom you ride, and it's going to be like that? I don't envision that happening.
No,
not
but
in this market.
I think the one that you're envisioning won't be there is Tommy Edman.
Yeah.
Lars Nootbaar is the guy. They've basically told you, Katie Wu had it in her piece. Rival teams have approached the Cardinals about Lars Nootbaar, though St. Louis has no inclination to move him. He may not be an MVP type player like a Tyler O'Neill or the top prospect like a Dylan Carlson, but he consistently is available to you. He consistently hits, he gets on base, and he's shown the ability to hit for power. And he plays good defense for you. That's the definition of a corner outfielder for the Cardinals. You've got the high upside in Jordan Walker. Victor Scott is going to be the center fielder. Frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if that's their fourth outfielder going into the season if they find a trade for Dylan Carlson on top of these other guys, because you can use Victor Scott behind a Richie Palacios, and if he has a great spring training, then you give him the shot, and if he doesn't, or if he struggles, you put him back down. It's what you did with Jordan Walker last year. If he struggles, you send him back down and you let him work through his kinks, but he's got the speed, he's got the defense, he could put you out there. The other person that Katie Wu brought up in her piece was Brendan Donovan. And she said Brendan Donovan is a popular name, and though the Cardinals surely would not want to part with Donovan's high ceiling, having Tommy Edman, Nolan Gorman, Mason Wynn might make that move much easier to stomach should they have to. If Brendan Donovan is available on the trade market, you've got some of the best pieces going into this winter meeting available to teams. Now, Cincinnati's got Jonathan India. Don't know if they really trade him. He's probably the best team. But in terms of major league ready talent, if Brendan Donovan, if Alec Burleson are all sitting on the trade market, that right there is how you make your offseason an A+.
Yeah, look, the Cardinals have chips that they can truly move and I think get a serious deal done for a top-end starter like a Dylan Cease. And Donovan's probably a name that would have to be involved, or Gorman's name would have to be involved. Now, are they going to make that move? Look, I mean, we just played the Mo cut. He basically said no.
Yeah, he said he loves his team.
They love their team. And look, every GM says that.
But he loved his team going into the trade with Nolan Arenado, too.
Exactly. So every GM says that. They do have they have legitimate pieces that they can move if they wanted to swing a Dylan Cease trade. I just think they view this offense as, hey, this was a top 10 offense when we were completely healthy last year. Do we really want to pull a piece out and risk this becoming like a Jenga board where you pull that out and it falls apart? I would argue that it wouldn't fall apart that much unless you traded like 3 pieces out of this offense. But they definitely have some of the top pieces, I think, going into this. It's just a matter of if they want to pull the trigger on it.
I haven't even brought up Steven Matz, too. I mean, Matz, but what I'm saying is you're either using him as a bullpen piece or you could also use him as somebody you can trade to a team that needs rotation help, and you could get a bullpen help on the other side.
Yeah, and he would fall more into like the Mariners move of being a salary dump, but you're right. I think you could get a bullpen arm in return. I mean,
look at what Atlanta did with them being able to dump some salary and get one piece back in return. You could open up a couple of roster spots in that sense, which, again, maybe you use that for the Rule 5 draft. Maybe you use that for a couple of free agents that are still sitting there at the end of the day once the winter meeting's wrapped up. Tanner Hendrickson, Alex Ferrario, Bradford Bruns with you. Coming up next, we've got the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's. If you've got your Christmas tree up yet, well, what are you waiting for? You need to get out there and you need to put it up, which means you need to go out to Ted Drew's off of Chippewa and check out the perfect combination that is frozen custard of whatever flavor you prefer and the Christmas trees. They've got the entire parking lot filled with fragrant balsam firs, Fraser firs, Scotch pines, and at Ted Drew's, their business is service, which means the staff is going to help you pick out the tree, carry it to your car, and secure it for that ride home. And while you're there, walk around, enjoy the Christmas feel with the Christmas music, get some frozen custard while you're walking around, maybe the s'more, which is a blend of chocolate, marshmallows, and graham crackers, and you can get your Christmas shopping done because you can walk across the parking lot, you can check out the famous frozen custard apparel where you could get Ted Drew's t-shirts, you could get hats, you can get gift cards, perfect stocking stuffer, or if you got somebody in your family that you don't know how to shop for, well, welcome to a Ted Drew's famous frozen gift card. So go check them out just off of Chippewa, and they just had Santa there yesterday, but don't worry, Santa's coming back a week from yesterday on December 10th from 12 to 2. It's Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Brought to you by Fenton Bar and Grill. Best trashed wings in Missouri. Dine in, carry out, 7 days a week.
Time to dive into Junk Drawer here on BK and Ferrario. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Our studio cams on YouTube at 101 ESPN STL. Brought to you by the Air Alliance teams. So parents, I'm talking to you right now. T-Bone, you're not included in this one. Bradford, you got a couple little ones, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
How old?
Not so little, actually.
Well, I guess.
Oh, gosh. Burgeoning into middle school and high school. Please.
Okay, so you're way past the topic.
Keep them little.
You're way past the topic that I'm about to talk about here. Potty training, ladies and gentlemen. Potty training. My wife and I are officially there with our 2-year-old who turns 3 in March. She's at daycare, still wears the diapers, but we've been slowly integrating potty training with her. So what we do is in the evening, we let her take her bath, come into the bedroom while we're getting Sissy put into PJs and ready for bed. Adelaide sits on the toilet. And so we give her the phone. She watches YouTube, little kids shows, and she just sits there until she goes. She'll pee. We celebrate. We put a sticker on a board. We give her candy. We celebrate.
Wow.
My problem with this is I don't feel like it's doing anything. I think she just associates going to the potty as post-bath, which means like the whole potty training process is like, okay, throughout the rest of the day, I could still pee and poop in my diaper, no big issue. But I know that I got to sit on the potty when I go to bed or prior to me going to bed. How the hell do parents do this? Because I try and remind her, I try and get her to tell me when she's got to go to the bathroom. We've tried to do the pull-ups over the underwear so she feels what it feels like. None of it works. Am I early in the stage? Is it... I'm very confused with potty training, and I feel like I'm going to be in this position where my daughter's never potty trained.
For how long have you been rocking this with the stickers? How long?
I want to say...
Hopefully you're not complaining 5 days in.
No. I want to say it's probably been about like a month.
Okay, give him more time. Give him more time. It's just a month.
Okay, but what's my time frame with this, Bradford?
It's just a month.
Am I talking a year here? Because I feel like an awful parent that my daughter is about to turn 3 and she's not potty trained.
Okay. You do have to set a deadline of sorts, but I'm just telling you, man, when you're only speaking about a period of 3 to 4 weeks thus far, it seems a little on the short side, not going to lie to you.
I get it, but I don't even know what to do.
Text line, help the man out.
I know, I don't even know what to do. I've heard parents say to do the total nude thing where you just let the kid walk around with nothing on, and when they look like they're about to go to the bathroom, you put them on the toilet so they understand that that's where you go.
Good luck with that.
I got a problem letting my daughter just walk around peeing wherever she decides to. I already got a problem with that for my dog.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, the dog just goes around and pees everywhere, so.
Oh, that's the worst. The 314, Google it. That's not helpful.
Please, I ain't going to. The last thing I'm going to do is Google how to potty train my daughter. Do you remember the potty training stage? Not you personally, Bradford, but with your kids.
Try to block those out. Now, what are we watching? Honestly, this is relevant. For how long? What are we watching here? Shorts, like Bluey?
No, yeah, typically it's like Peppa Pig. We let her sit on the potty until she goes. And so she'll sit there sometimes about 5 minutes. Sometimes she just goes and sits there for a good 20 minutes until she goes. And we celebrate when she goes so she realizes, hey, that's a good thing. But I don't feel like that does the point of what you're trying to accomplish, to teach the kid to hey, when you have to go to the bathroom, you got to tell me. Because now she's in the stage where it's I'll go to the bathroom at night when I get my phone. So maybe I'm doing it wrong.
No, I think you're fine.
What's the text line saying about this?
There's a lot of good advice. There's also a lot of bad advice.
I'm more interested in the bad advice.
Give it 6 months. It'll work.
Okay,
work
so
out
6 months?
That's what 314 just said.
Okay.
A bit on the high side.
I've seen a lot of what you're doing. Candy, give her candy after she goes. I've seen a lot of that one. I think you're on the right track here.
Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of 6 months. I'm seeing a lot of she's not even 3 yet. Be patient. I'm not rushing her at all, and I'm not upset. I'm more worried the perception of like, oh, my daughter's not even 3 and she's not potty trained. And maybe that's the case for all of them.
I think as long as you beat like before kindergarten, you'll be good.
Well,
and
yeah,
honestly, probably before preschool.
I say you can't go to preschool unless you're fully potty trained.
Yeah.
From what my understanding is.
Yes,
I think you're good.
Okay.
314 here. Just turning 3. Just be patient. My son just turned 4. Figured out 3 months ago. Finally. All right. I think. I mean, I'm not even in the process of this potty training, but I think you're doing a good job.
Thanks.
And based on what
Yeah.
I've read from the text line, you just got to give it more time.
I feel like I'm trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. When we try to get Adelaide to go to the potty, I should bring my 1-year-old in the bathroom with her so she's at least seeing her sister do it. So like, hey, just know this is you in a year.
We're getting ahead of schedule.
Yeah, you'll start going. But
2 for 1 special.
I've heard the parents be like, oh, yeah, my kid was potty trained at 16 months. I'm like, why? Why was your kid potty trained at 16 months?
Why not?
If that's possible, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like potty training a dog, right? You just put it outside a couple of times, and then like sooner or later, 2 weeks in, they'll figure it out.
Just like that. Hey, eventually, maybe you consider the idea of a soft start in relation to time limits. I'm just telling you, if you basically plant that seed as far as, oh, here's, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, slowly start to create that expectation as far as, a general amount of time. I'm just saying, hey, maybe.
Yeah, somebody said it could take months. Okay, so that makes me feel better about this if it takes months, not like weeks, because I'm the impatient type that's like, oh, am I like not doing this correctly? But I'll just give it more time.
Man, you and BK have a lot of the same, like, what would I call it? Like, I don't want to call it parenting style, but a lot of like the same parenting similars. I remember BK going like, yeah, I feel like Luke is bored. Dude, he's like not even 5 months yet. What do you mean he's bored?
I'm trying to force my 2-year-old to go pee on the potty.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
like trying to rush the potty training process. He's out there like, I think he's bored. I think he wants to go play catch. BK, he's 5 months. Let's calm down.
That's good to know. Well, at least I know I'm not a bad parent in all of this. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, Jakub Vrana has spoken out once again. Why is it not working between him and the Blues? And is Doug Armstrong starting to fall into John Mozeliak territory? I'll explain next on 101 ESPN.
where St. Louis gets its sports. WXOS, HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. It is BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Blues back in action later on tonight. It'll be Blues and Golden Knights. A puck drop at 9 o'clock with Chris Kerber and Joe Vitale, which means I've got your first Community Credit Union pregame beginning at 8 o'clock. And we'll wait to find out. They haven't had their morning skate with the line rushes, but yesterday in practice, Jakub Vrana was still the 13th forward on the ice, as he was not in the line combinations of the four guys. Matt DeFranks had tweeted that out from Vegas, and if it goes down that path, it's right where we kind of expected it to be. Jakub Vrana has fallen out of grace with this Blues team, and he's just not in the lineup. The offense hasn't clicked. The defense that Craig Berube wants from him is not there, and he's suffering for it. But the question is, are the Blues the problem, not Vrana? Because Matt DeFranks had it in his piece earlier yesterday on the Post-Dispatch. In 20 games, he scored 10 goals with the Blues last year. He was averaging 15 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time, a figure that would have been a career high across an entire season. Entering the season, Vrana had the pedigree of an elite goal scorer that ranked behind only Austin Matthews with a 1.52 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 from the 2020 to the 2023 season. This is what Vrana had to say following their practice. At the beginning of the season, this is not how I thought it's going to turn out. There's a lot of things I cannot control at the moment, and I'm just coming in here trying to stay positive and enjoy every day at the rink and work on myself, gain confidence out there when I'm practicing, just waiting for the opportunity to come, and that's all you can do at this position I am in right now. That's like Jakub Vrana on the Post-Dispatch. Matt DeFranks putting that out there from Vegas. I understand the sentiment of you need to put Vrana in. Your defense isn't good right now, and he's a goal scorer. You need offense. I don't think you need offense right now.
I think you need defense.
I think you need defense right now. And here's the thing with Vrana. Yes, the narrative was this guy is a top goal scorer in the league. Kevin Allen, who covers the team in Detroit, everybody there expected 40 goals out of him. In Washington, he was a guy that showed the potential of being a 40-goal scorer. But that window that Matt DeFranks put in the piece where people say, oh, he's like Austin Matthews. And I used this as the defense of going to get Jakub Vrana, and it didn't work out. But in the time frame where he was one of these greatest 5-on-5 goal scorers, he scored 11 goals in 39 games. That was with Washington. Then he was traded 8 goals in 11 games with Detroit, 13 and 26, 11 and 25. And that was the season where he scored 1 in 5 games with Detroit and then 10 and 20 with the Blues. So in those 3 seasons, yes, he was scoring nearly goals per every other game, but he was only playing 25, 30 games for you. That over an 82-game schedule, it was panning out to be like 15 goals. And I'm sorry, but right now for Jakub Vrana, as much as I agree he's got offense, he's not providing the offense for the Blues. He's not shooting the puck when he's in the games. And he's also a liability defensively. And that's why you're not seeing him in the lineup. So I can understand the narrative from people that say, oh, well, maybe the Blues got a problem that they can't get Jakub Vrana. They couldn't get the best out of Mike Hoffman. I hate to remind everybody, but Mike Hoffman is in San Jose right now, I think, with 2 goals on the season.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Sometimes it's just the player that doesn't match with the team. It's not the team ruining the player.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that you just said about the Vrana situation here in St. Louis. I think it is more so like, hey, look, the Blues, they know that we're not going to win offensive games, but we need to be better defensively. And if Vrana was a guy that you could count on defensively at count on loose term. If Vrana was okay,
you just need to count on him being responsible.
Exactly. If he was responsible, okay defensively, 5-on-5, then you can put him on that third line pairing. You can get him 12 minutes of ice time and throw him on the number 1 power play unit for his one-time shot. Problem is the 2 times that he's been given opportunities to be in the lineup, he hasn't proven to be a responsible defensive player. And the Blues just cannot have that this year. They just will not accept that, and that's okay. I think sometimes, and we've talked about this before with both Blues players and Cardinals players, sometimes it just comes down to the player. Is the player going to be willing to make the changes that are necessary, that are going to, what they want to call it, appease the club or do what needs to be done to get back in the club's favor? And right now, Vrana's not doing it. And I think until he is willing to come back, be more responsible defensively, he's not going to be in the lineup. And the Blues will continue to run out Alexandrov. Now, I would question, why can't the Blues start to make those adjustments to try and get to that point to where they can make this work with these goal-scoring forwards? But I don't think this is necessarily all on them. I think this is a Vrana thing.
Here's the other thing, too. Does anybody think that Vrana's like a piece to the puzzle long-term for the Blues?
No.
Because if you don't, why are we trying to make this thing work? You're trying to make your team better offensively now, but over who? I mean, look, I don't think Alexandrov is going to be anything near what Vrana is, but I'd much rather see him get fourth-line minutes than see third-line minutes from a Jakub Vrana. And last season, he was playing with Pavel Buchnevich and Kasperi Kapanen. He was playing with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. And he still wasn't the overly productive player in terms of expected goals. He capitalized on opportunities. He was getting power play time, but you were playing him in a top six role. And you didn't really care if the defense wasn't there because the system was kind of flawed last season. Right now, you've got more guys who are capable of playing in the top six. Jake Neighbors deserve to be in the top six. Jordan Kyrou should be in the top six. Kevin Hayes has created more offense than Jakub Vrana has in the games, which is why if he's not playing on the third, if he's playing on the third line, are you really getting the goal scoring from him as a third line player? Because if you're not, you need that player to be responsible. And if he's not giving that to you, then it doesn't make sense to get him in the lineup.
And to your point of him not being here long term, I mean, we all agree he was a placeholder until you could buy time, whether it be next year, end of the season, whenever, for the Jimmy Snuggeruds to come along, for Dalibor Dvorsky to come along, all those young pieces that you have, maybe even Bolduc if he ends up taking this game to the next level at the AHL and he starts to push to be on a NHL spot or earn an NHL roster spot. Like, he was just a placeholder. And that does bring me to my question I was going to raise to you. There was a tweet over the weekend I saw from Scott Wheeler, who covers the NHL prospects for The Athletic, and he tweeted out, St. Louis Blues first-round pick Dalibor Dvorsky got his first OHL hat trick tonight, and all three came on one-timers.
Whoa!
Could we see Dvorsky here at the end of the year? I don't know exactly how it all works in the OHL and his contract and all that. I know he's on a entry-level deal for the Blues. Could we see him? Because, I've been looking for a one-timer to fix the power play.
Well, just to get you even more excited, you've also got Jimmy Snuggerud, who's been a one-time goal-scoring threat with Minnesota, and Zach Bolduc has been doing that in the minors as well. Yes, there's always a chance you could see these players. The problem is, are you in a playoff position? Because if you are, do you want to bring him into that position? Or if you're not in a playoff position, do you want to bring him up when the team's struggling? Like, you want to do what's best for the young player. What I could see happening is, I don't know how it works. Maybe he's not eligible to go to the minors at the end of the season. So it might be you either go into the offseason or you go to the NHL. I think it's more likely you'll see a Snuggerud on this team once the college season is over than a Dalibor Dvorsky. Plus, that season, if this team's good, you're talking about playing into the month of April. If the playoffs are there, like Zach Dean and Bolduc did last season. Those guys weren't even available because they played all the way up until the Memorial Cup, which was late April, and by then your season's over.
Well, I'd be willing to root for an early exit for this OHL team.
Hey, come on,
just so
man.
he could be here to help the Blues. I mean, let's just be honest. It's a little bit more important. To your question, though, of would you want to bring him into a playoff environment? I get that to a certain extent, but if you truly believe that he could help you and could provide a one-timer and you feel like he's responsible, and look, I don't even know if he would, because I think you're right, they probably would send him to the off-season because he played in the top league in, where was it, Sweden or Finland? I can't remember where he was at prior to this season, and that team had 10 games and was like, yeah, this guy can't play with the pros in the Sweden league, he's got to go play in the juniors. Yeah. So it's probably more likely that they would send him the off-season route, but I think it is interesting that if you see his one-time shot, you say, I think there's the possibility that maybe you bring him in and you say, hey, who cares if it's a playoff run? Because let's be honest, if we're making the playoffs, we're not going to be favored in that series. Let's just see what it looks like.
And it's not a bad thing to have a young player get that experience as well. Jeremy Rutherford tweeting us kind of the rules on this side of it. So he can join the Blues once the Sudbury Wolves season is over, or if he's an emergency recall by the Blues. So he can join them in those situations, but you're more than likely letting the season play out. He's going to probably be a part of this World Junior Tournament as well. One more conversation that popped into my mind over the weekend. It kind of plays into the Jakub Vrana thing, but more so some of the guys on other teams. And I ask this as a serious question, not something that I have the answer to. Is Doug Armstrong starting to trend towards John Mozeliak territory? And what I mean by that is people are so hard on John Mozeliak because, he gives up on players too soon or he trades the wrong guys away. And the talent evaluation is not proper. Vince Dunn is having a very good season, back-to-back seasons with the Seattle Kraken. And Jake Wallman is another player that is having an awesome season for the Detroit Red Wings, getting top 4 pair minutes as a left-handed defenseman. We know about David Perron. We know about Alex Pietrangelo. Ryan O'Reilly, they didn't get a deal done, an extension done, and he's got 11 goals so far in the early portion of the season. I know there are some that look at Doug Armstrong and say, oh, yeah, he's screwed this team up. I don't think that, because you've made some pretty impressive trades, even post-Stanley Cup championship. But do you feel, T-Bone, that he's starting to get to the point of you're questioning some of the moves that take place?
No, I don't think so, because I just never saw – I don't know if Vince Dunn – sometimes it is more the player just has to have a change of scenery. I don't think Vince Dunn was ever going to work here in St. Louis. I don't think Jake Wallman was ever going to work here in St. Louis. Hell, we were joking about Jake Wallman being a forward here in St. Louis.
That's how they treated him.
I just don't think that those guys were going to work out here in St. Louis. Now, you could say that that's on the Blues. They've got to figure out a way to make that work. I just think some guys have to have a change of scenery for things to work and for the right pieces to fall in place for them. Is Buchnevich the all-around player in New York if he's still there today? Maybe, but maybe he's not. I don't know. I don't think, and I think Mo gets a bit of an unfair criticism as well at times too. Have there been mistakes by both general managers? Absolutely. Have they also made some great deals that maybe they don't get enough credit for? 100%. So no, I don't think he's falling into Mo territory, and I think it's a bit unfair to even say it's Mo territory, if you will.
Yeah, that's where I fall into this one as well. I mean, as much as I think Jake Wallman's a great player, Jake Wallman, he got top pair minutes with the Blues before he was traded to Detroit. Was it a lot? No, but to me, the Blues saw enough what they believed and said, no, we don't think this is what this Blues team needs. Vince Dunn got all of those minutes prior to him getting claimed in that expansion draft. I think right now, the Ryan O'Reilly stings because he was just such an integral part of the team and he's going off. David Perron, success on the power play. But 3-4 years from now, depending on what the Blues look like, that's when you can start looking back and saying, did they make the right decisions? But for right now, I think you're in a position where those players weren't going to work here, and you're also tied into some contracts that you're trying to get out of, and the Blues kind of fall victim to those circumstances. Coming up next, in or out, you send us a scenario, 314-399-9646. We'll tell you if we are in or out of your scenario next on 101 ESPN.
101 mobile app.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN. Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. It is time for In or Out. You send us a scenario, we'll tell you if we are in or out. Fellas, I'll start with this one. In or out, the Blues have at least one top-line winger in their system. Minor league system. Prospect system.
Sure, I'll take the field. I'm in.
Just going to take the field, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if Dvorsky, Snuggerud, Bolduc, Dean don't pan out, man, there was an issue.
Yeah.
So I'll say I'm in. I think.
You think one of them is a top-line winger, though?
I think Snuggerud could be. I think that guy's going to be a stud. Just everything he's put up in college, he feels like the guy that's going to come up. Now, I wonder if he'll have a little bit of, and fans will hate to hear this, but I wonder if he'll have a little bit of that Kyrou to him, where it is maybe it takes a year or two before he becomes defensively responsible. But, yeah, I think he can definitely be a top-line winger.
For the purpose of clarification, you can be on the top line without technically being a star, right?
Wow.
There you go.
That was a shot at the Blues.
No, not whatsoever.
Way to go, Bradford. Way to go, Bradford.
Clip
that one out and tweet it out and see what happens.
Pragmatic. Sorry.
I'm going to say in because I do think it's Snuggerud, but don't overlook Dvorsky as well. I know Dvorsky is a centerman. They can make him a winger. And you've already shown the one-time ability, and you've shown your size, and don't overlook the fact that he is a 10th overall pick. I think that can play into this one. The Blues might have two of them, and it really comes down to how long it takes for those guys to progress. At the end of the season, let me add on to this one. In or out, at the end of the season, Dvorsky and Snuggerud are both playing for the Blues.
Out. I'm skeptical Dvorsky's even up here, and I know we just talked about it. The only reason I brought that up was I did see the tweet about him scoring a hat trick, and when I saw 3 one-timers, I went, wow. That might look great here in St. Louis, but would look great in St. Louis. I think it's just one of those where they're going to send both those guys into the offseason and say, hey, get ready for training camp because this is the year you're going to get a chance to push. And to your point, I don't think they're going to really want to bring those guys in to whether it be a playoff race or a team that's out of the playoffs, just because I think they want to wait. They want to let them buy their time. Then when their moment comes next year, then they're ready to go, rather than say, hey, I know you've played a bunch of games already, but let's play a couple more. Let's throw you into our system and rush your development.
Cannot bite on both. One would be absolutely delightful, but can't rush it.
Yeah, both would be really nice. But I think you do, but I think it's going to take a few years to get to that point. T-Bone, what do you got?
In or out, the St. Louis Cardinals will acquire two bullpen arms by the end of the winter meetings.
Out. I don't think they're going to get 2 of them. I think they'll have one, and then they'll say that they made progress and started conversations with the other. I think the second one will be following the winter meetings prior to spring training.
Now, see, that's practical as well. I like that line of thinking. The one arm, though, so I'm out, but the one arm will be one of substance. By the way, the group, let's go back to that group that we outlined near the top of the show today. If you're talking about Maton, if you're talking about Neris, if you're talking about Ottavino, maybe even throwing, let's just say for fun, for kicks and giggles, Kimbrel into the mix. Among the veterans, and I know, Alex, you'd rather pursue the avenue as far as a trade acquisition is concerned. Who's the most realistic? Whom would you trust the most in this uniform in 2024?
Out of their bullpen?
Of those pieces, the veteran pieces that are out there right now.
Maton for me. I know it's been 2 years.
It would probably be Maton.
I think he's the most realistic. I think all those names you can trust, I
think Matsui might be the one, which I know seems odd to say, but I think you're getting the most. And if you're talking about trust for this coming season, you're getting the most unknown from Matsui because other teams don't know what he's bringing.
That's why I wouldn't put him in this conversation. In terms of why I trust him, I think he's realistic. I'm skeptical if they want to add another lefty to the pen because they've already got a lot back in the pen.
Yeah.
I think Maton's the guy. They're reported to be interested in him. I don't think he's going to cost a lot. And he slides in perfectly into that 6th, 7th inning role as a right-handed pitcher. So he's the one that makes the most sense to me. But on my in and out, I agree with you guys. I'm out. I don't think they get 2. I think they get 1 by the end of the winter meetings.
Maton as well, 30 years old, has really overcome a lot of the erratic command that bedeviled him during his early career with San Diego as well as Cleveland. Guys, in or out, a little bit of news trickling out from the Steel City this morning. Quarterback for the Steelers, Kenny Pickett, undergoing surgery for a high ankle sprain. In or out, two teams from the AFC North still ultimately make the playoffs. Murky picture.
Oh, man.
You have Pittsburgh right now and Cleveland at the moment at 7-5. Cincinnati lurking, but think about the trajectories now. Pittsburgh, I'm not going to say plummeting, but definitely looking more vulnerable than just a couple of short weeks ago. In Cleveland, do you trust Joe Flacco to really steady the ship for the remainder of the season?
I think I would, if you were to tell me now, I would say two teams from the AFC South get in. You've got the Ravens, you've got the Chiefs, you've got the Dolphins. I think the Bills will be in. So what's that, 7? So we're talking one more team?
No, if it's 7, you're right.
Oh, so that's it.
I didn't even keep track, so I don't know how many you got, too.
I'm going to say out on this one. I think the Bills are better than both the Steelers and Browns by the end of this season.
And there it is.
And I think you're going to get one of the Colts or Texans are better than the Steelers and Browns. And that's the second team that gets in. So I'm going to say one. I think only the Ravens get in from the AFC North.
I'm going to forget this. I think you could still see
or
two
you're
more.
out on this one.
Or out, sorry. Wrong game.
That'll be tomorrow. That'll be tomorrow, buddy.
They're completely different, by the way. I'm going to say I'm out on this. I think at least one more, but I could see two still sneaking in. So I think Pittsburgh can still make the playoffs because is Trubisky really that much of a downgrade from Kenny Pickett? The offense hasn't been good all season, and the defense has been awesome.
Play yesterday?
I know it's risky Trubisky.
Woof.
But the defense is still really good. Let's be honest. They haven't won a football game this year because of their offense. That trend can still continue. Joe Flacco actually looked competent at quarterback yesterday, which was actually shocking. And that defense is still pretty good. And then I think the Colts are going to be a playoff team. Colts or Texans. I'm a little skeptical of the Texans because they lost their top wide receiver in Tank Dell. I don't think the Bills are in. The Bills' schedule is really tough down the stretch. They just had their bye week this week. This is the remaining schedule. At Kansas City.
Win.
Loss. First Dallas.
Kansas City just lost to Green Bay and Jordan Love.
Looks more winnable now.
Sure, it looks more winnable. Josh Allen's just a turnover machine. They're going to lose.
I thought BK was off today. I didn't know he showed up in a plaid collared shirt.
At Kansas City, I think it's a loss.
It's a win.
Versus Dallas, a loss.
Yeah.
At the Chargers, they can probably win that game. Versus New England, they can win that game. At Miami, I think they lose. I know they beat them earlier, but I think they lose that game.
I'd say that's 3, maybe 4 wins, and that gives you 9, maybe 10, which I think that you're better than both of those teams in the AFC North. I don't see the Browns or Steelers picking up 2 more wins the rest of the season.
I do. I think their defenses are good enough. I was shocked that the Browns were able to hang into that game for a while.
Well, I will vehemently disagree with that terrible statement.
This is the remaining schedule for the Browns. Jaguars, that's a loss. Bears, they can win. Texans, they might be able to beat now. Jets, they can win against if Rodgers isn't playing. Rodgers could be back. Who knows? At the Bengals, they should win that game now because their defense. Looking at the Steelers' schedule. Patriots, win. At the Colts is tough. They might be able to do it. Bengals, win. At the Seahawks, who knows what the hell the Seahawks are, and then at the Ravens. I can see both those teams still getting in.
Inexplicably for me, the Cleveland defense has not traveled especially well this season. Yesterday, you can say what you will, but one of my biggest takeaways from the Week 13 slate, and such a referendum and indictment on the state of the quarterback position in the NFL. Joe Flacco legitimately looked better than at least 1/3 of the individuals behind center this year. That is shocking, from off the couch to being competent, as you said, Tanner.
In or out from the 314, Bill Belichick will be the Chargers head coach next year.
I'm going to go out. I think they're going to look for an offensive mind because they just failed with the defensive coordinator and Brandon Staley. I think...
Yeah, but you got to get a good defensive coordinator.
Fair. I wouldn't be shocked if Ben Johnson's the guy in L.A. next year.
Here's a good question. Do you trust a Bill Belichick right now to actually allow Justin Herbert to reach his full potential? Do you trust that at the quarterback position?
Yeah, because I think he's got a better quarterback than the crap he's had to deal with in New England.
But by the way,
of his own doing.
I was
good
just about to mention.
Of his own doing, absolutely.
I was going to say, how much does his roster building weigh into this? Because if he goes somewhere, he's going to want to say in the roster building. Whether he should or not is definitely up for debate.
But I think the motivation for a Bill Belichick at this point of his career is finding a way to pick up, 30 more wins to take over first place and most wins by head coach. That's your motivation. So you're going to go to a team that's in place that you feel like needs help on your defense. I'm going to forget it because I'm going to say I'm out. Damn it, Tanner. I'll play the field in this one, but if you're Belichick, there's two teams that are most intriguing to me if I want to get to that threshold. It'd be the Chargers and Cowboys. Because both teams... I
don't think Cowboys are firing.
I don't think so either, unless they completely lay an egg in the first round. I don't think so either. The Chargers and Cowboys both have offense in place, and they've got the right pieces on defense. It's a matter of putting the right coach in place.
Frankly, I don't know if the Chargers have quite as much allure as we've prescribed to them over the last couple of years. If you really think about it, yes, Eckler, uncertainty at the running back position. Allen, unfortunately, despite the incredible production this year, is getting older, and Mike Williams is never available. I like the defense. I like some of the pieces, but so far, yes, through in part some of the fault of the coaching there. What has Justin Herbert won in the postseason? I don't know if it's that attractive.
Last one from the 636. Blues will have 3 30-goal scorers this season, in or out.
Oh,
I'll say I'm in on this one. Kyra's going to be there.
Kyra will get
despite
there.
what people think. He's going to go on a hot streak. Thomas is a third of the way there right now. And I think one of Buchnevich or Jake Neighbors gets there.
Ooh.
I think somebody in that top line gets there for you. So I'm going to say in on this one.
I'll say in as well, because I think you're right about Kyra. I think he'll get there. He's got to be getting close, I would assume, to breaking out. He's not going to have a shooting percentage of 5% all year.
That's what Vrana has.
I think Thomas could get there this year. He's playing better. And then it comes down to Booch or Neighbors. If Booch stays healthy, I think he can get there. And so far, he's been healthy most of the year. So I'll say in, but I think it's probably just those three. If Booch doesn't get there, I'm not sure Neighbors can this year. I think his ceiling's like 20, 25.
I will say out, but solely because I am staunchly behind the idea of 5 Blues, a quintet reaching 25 plus. Who's with me?
Who's the other 2?
Yeah.
I got 3 of them in mind.
Bradford,
4 of them.
Production will come.
One more. So you need 20. You need 25 from Shen or Sod. That's essential, or Kevin Hayes. But
Shen, not out of the realm of possibility.
No. Shen's always probably around that 20 to 25 goal range. So yeah, I don't think that's that crazy of a prediction there. But the way that this offense has been up and down right now, I'd say I don't even know. They could go on a hot streak and be the highest scoring goal scoring team in the National Hockey League for the next month, or they could lay eggs every single night.
I wonder how many teams, because they've played 23 games. I wonder how many teams through their first wherever we're at in this part of the season don't have a goal scorer with double digits.
The Blues do.
They don't.
Yeah, Neighbors is there.
He's got 9.
Oh, didn't he score his 10th?
Not according to Hockey Reference. No, he hit the crossbar against Arizona.
9, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that one came back out. That's right.
There can't be many teams in the NHL that don't have a goal scorer that has 10.
That's an interesting.
I would think that I would think the Blues are one of 2-3 teams, and that's not a shot against the Blues, just so we're clear. I mean, their offense hasn't been great, but
distribution.
They've always said they want to play with a pack mentality. Well, welcome to the pack.
No, they got one. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I might have to look that one up.
I mean, the Sharks might be there, but
that's probably the team that's right there with you. But that's not good company to be in.
No.
If you're the Blues. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, not just the Cardinals that have been busy over the weekend and at the start of the winter meetings. Major League Baseball has been, which means it's time for our Major League Baseball offseason winter meetings roundup. Yeah! Next on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at 100 West Dental, friends and dentists. And let me tell you, that makes the difference because everybody gets that anxiety going to the dentist, worried they're going to talk to you about your teeth, tell you that you got cavities, and you go through the pain of getting them cleaned. You don't have to deal with that anymore. This is coming from somebody who has high anxiety about the dentist. Not once I met with Dr. Pryor and his team out at 100 West Dental because they're all about the preventative procedure. They're all about the modern technology, making sure the patient experience is at its best. And on top of it, you don't have to call and try and schedule. No, you could do it all from the comfort of your phone, your home. You schedule online. Just check the calendar and book at 100westdental.com. And right now, they're offering two really awesome deals for you. If you go into 100 West Dental and mention my name, Alex Ferrario, they'll give you a $1,000 off for the Invisalign package. And they're doing a White Christmas white teeth promotion, which if you go in and say 101 ESPN, you'll get $1,000 off of the Invisalign. You'll also get some promos towards that free teeth whitening kit using the name 101 ESPN. So go check them out, 100 West Dental. Get with the best at 100 West.
Catch the Balloon Party with Tim McKernan and Action Jackson. Weekdays from 10 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The fastest hour of sports radio is driven by Munganast and Burkhardt Alton Toyota. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Blues try for a winning hand in Vegas. Good afternoon. This is Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Over the weekend, the Note could not get the offense revved up in Arizona. Brandon Saad tallying the lone goal in Saturday's 4-1 L. This evening brings another chance to turn matters around. 16-5-4 Vegas is the opponent out west. Pregame starts at 8 with puck drop at 9 p.m. Football college version bowl season officially beginning beginning on December the 16th, and Mizzou knows its destination come the 29th. The Tigers are Dallas bound for a Cotton Bowl showdown against Ohio State. Earlier in the morning, Buckeyes starting quarterback Kyle McCord entered his name into the transfer portal. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new roads and shop 24/7 at Londoff.com and LondoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
Time for our Major League Baseball offseason roundup. Oh, God, I'm so glad T-Bone's doing that one today. My voice isn't going to hold up. It is BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario and Bradford Bruns. Well, I'm Alex Ferrario. As we dive into
Tanner Hendrickson.
As we dive into
Partner.
some Major League Baseball offseason news, let's start with the Cardinals because we've got another John Mozeliak cut, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, boy.
He was on MLB Network, not the radio, the television side. He just backed up exactly what he said earlier. Basically, he said, I don't see us walking out of the winter meetings without finding a way to trade an outfielder for a bullpen arm.
Wow.
And now the real conversation begins of it's just Tyler O'Neill.
Or Carlson.
No.
Or Burleson.
Or just
or
Tyler
Palacios. What could you get for
Palacios? Do you really think that, like on level of bullpen excitement, bullpen arm excitement, how would you rank the pieces the Cardinals could trade out to bring something in? It would probably be Burleson, Carlson, O'Neill? Or would it be Carlson, Burleson, O'Neill? Like, O'Neill would be at the bottom of that ranking.
Yeah, but I still think you can get a decent arm for O'Neill. That's a good question.
I think you're getting a lot of hopium for O'Neill.
Yeah, but I think any team could look at O'Neill and that hopium, to your point, think they could fix him and get him back to MVP level. I would probably say Burleson, just because he's been healthier, his contact rate's there, he doesn't strike out. Like, I could see where teams like him, and I think became at the comp last year to where, like, his numbers early on in his career look, and he kind of reminds you a little bit of Matt Adams, to where he's never going to hit 30 home runs, but he's got like 15, 20 home run power, could hit for average. Carlson would probably be a little bit lower just because he's coming off of the ankle injury and just had off-season surgery. But I think all three guys, you can get a decent bullpen arm for. I think there's a chance this bullpen arm that Mo's talking about, people are going to look at it and go, what are they doing? That's a terrible bullpen arm. And we're all going to look at it and go, it's a bullpen arm. It's not sexy, but you look at his numbers, I can see what the Cardinals see here.
Tanner, I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum because I believe if you would have witnessed, if so far you had actually seen more production in the way of the power from Burleson, that would enhance the value there. Now, the contact rate has been generally strong, but given also some of the, let's be kind here, shortcomings or lack of exemplary defense in the outfield, the lack of power, too, to me, kind of compromises a bit of his value at this point.
Next up in our Major League Baseball offseason roundup.
We've loaded up the wagon, partner, and we've ridden down to Nashville.
Let's stick in the NL Central because, guys, get scared.
Uh-oh.
Get scared. Because two teams have made moves. Well, one team, the other one's rumored. Wade Miley is staying in Milwaukee.
Oh, no, we can't hit that guy.
And the Pittsburgh Pirates have expressed interest in Jack Flaherty.
Oh, wow.
Jack Flaherty out for vengeance. This is why the Cardinals operate the way they do. Because there's every season, at minimum, two teams in the NL Central that say, we'll do the bare minimum and see if we can get by.
The Pirates are all in.
The Pirates are going to throw a one-year deal versus like $10 million at Jack Flaherty and say, see if you can rebound.
I don't think Jack's going to have any pitch comm issues there.
No.
Ambience.
I think Jack's going to have a lot of issues there, and it's not going to be pitch comm related.
He'll be able to hear it in that empty ballpark. The Wade Miley one, like, it makes sense for the Brewers. Like, they're going to be stocking up with arms because they're probably going to trade Burns.
Yeah.
And if they don't trade him at the winter meetings, they're going to at least explore the option of trading him. The Jack Flaherty one, like, that's the kind of market he's in now, man. Like, boy, He played the cards. Cards were not in his favor, and he's going to have to settle. He's going to have to settle for a 1-year deal, probably. He may get a 2-year deal with like an option attached to it, but I think he's probably going to get a 1-year deal from a team like the Pirates, a team like the Royals that are going to say, "Hey, let's bring him in. See if we fix him." And you know what? If we fix him, we'll trade him at the deadline.
And it's a smart move by Jack too. Like you got to go somewhere where you got to build your stock back up, a 1-year deal.
Where you know you're going to start, too.
And then hope you have a great year. You go back, and then by the trade deadline, maybe you get traded like a Jordan Montgomery, and you go to a team where you have success. But it's a smart move by him. It's just surprising to see very little teams in on the news. But you're right. Pirates, Royals, that's the market you're playing in if you're Jack Flaherty. Speaking of pitching, one former Cardinal was a part of a trade yesterday as we continue with our Major League Baseball offseason roundup. Braves acquired outfielder Jared Kelenic.
Yep.
I was worried I'd mispronounce that. Marco Gonzalez and Evan White for pitchers Jackson Cower and Cole Phillips. So Seattle moving on from Marco Gonzalez, and it sounds like the Braves aren't keeping Marco Gonzalez as they're going to probably put him in another deal, reports by Ken Rosenthal. But this was a bigger move for the Braves getting an outfielder to tie in, to get tinfoil theory with you, for Seattle to go get themselves another outfielder, which I've seen the rumors and the reports of Seattle and Juan Soto being a potential match.
Ooh. But if the Cardinals were still searching for a back-end starter, which they're not, but if they were, say they hadn't signed Lynn or Gibson, Gonzalez would have been the perfect guy to bring in.
If they had it, yeah.
Yeah, because
and I also think they have like 3 Marco Gonzalez's on their team.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, he's that perfect, typical number 4, number 5 starter that teams are going to trade for. And look, he just got dealt. Now, this was a salary dump, but he just got dealt in his salaries, I think, $12 or $13 million this season.
Yeah.
You know what Steven Matz is making? He's making about $11 million. So if the Cardinals chose to go down the route of, hey, let's go get that number 1, and let's not, we don't need Steven Matz as the swingman. We got Zach Thompson for that role. Younger's better, as they like to say here in Cowboy Nation.
Younger's always better.
They could easily trade Steven Matz in a quote-unquote salary dump. And the Mariners got a okay haul. They got 2 projects that they're going to be putting into their system as pitchers. This, to me, showed you kind of what the path could look like if you wanted to go a salary dump. If you're the Cardinals, you would dump Matz, probably get like a bullpen arm or a young starter in return. So this was a decent trade.
Wherever he winds up, Gonzalez at this stage of his career, he is a nice depth piece. It's kind of hard to believe you still like the southpaw element too, that he spent 7 seasons in the Pacific Northwest. Kind of got lost up there.
One more for today's Major League Baseball offseason roundup. T-Bone started to feel what I feel through these. Shohei Ohtani update, ladies and gentlemen. John Morosi.
Cardinal?
Well, first John Heyman reported. No, God, no. John Heyman reporting that the bidding has surpassed $500 million in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, and his contract could surpass $600 million. And then good old J.P. Morosi, John Morosi, swoops in and adds on to it, saying the reports are the Braves are still among the teams engaged with Shohei Ohtani. Now, remember everything that came out about Ohtani, kept it private, and if a team emerges as a team involved, they're probably not involved. Do you buy the Braves being involved in this? Because I don't.
I don't either, really.
There's no way I could see the Braves being willing to throw all of that money at that player.
Yeah, and they've talked about being able to increase their payroll, but they're already starting to increase it. They just took on money in this deal for Gonzalez. Now, if they flip Gonzalez, maybe it's different, but I don't know. I don't think the Braves are the sure. I still think it's Dodgers. I still think it's Cubs. And I think Toronto's maybe a dark horse in there. I think those are the 3 teams that are really fighting for Shohei Ohtani services. But there was that report early on in the offseason that Ohtani liked the Atlanta Braves. So, I mean, if you're the Braves, why not? Why not go for him?
Do you think he still ends up back with the Angels?
I think it's possible.
If this is the number that's starting to come out?
I think it's possible, and I think the main reason for him going back isn't even the money. They're just the team that he's comfortable with. They let him do his own thing. He doesn't speak to the media in L.A. He goes to the Dodgers. The Dodgers are going to have their own program for him. They're not going to let him run the show. That would be the only reason I could see where he ends up going back to the Angels. But I think he wants to win, so I think he's going to leave.
Precisely. He values winning. And as for Atlanta, early in the offseason, the Braves had basically been rumored as being in on so many different individuals. First it was Sonny Gray, and then obviously now putting the name out there, it's intriguing, but I still think he goes coastal specifically to the boys in blue.
Yeah, I still think he ends up with the Angels. I think he goes back to L.A. and wraps it up with the Angels and just says, this is the best spot for me. I'm here. I'm comfortable. As Greg Wyshynski always says, where's your stuff at?
Well, there's 2 teams in L.A.
Yeah, but you got to move your stuff from one part of the L.A. to the other part of L.A. Yeah, and then the commute comes into it. You know how that works. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. That'll do for this edition of our Major League Baseball offseason roundup. Yeah! Rewind next on 101 ESPN.
.101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of tickets to the 64th Annual St. Louis Baseball Writers Dinner on Sunday evening, January 14th at the Missouri Athletic Club downtown, celebrating the top performers from last season and honoring the legacy of those who have made long-lasting contributions to the Cardinals organization. Tickets are on sale now for what will surely be a memorable night for St. Louis baseball fans. Get all of the details and get entered to win that pair of tickets for the St. Louis Baseball Writers Dinner now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN. Let's run Run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Join in the holiday spirit by helping 101 ESPN support Operation Food Search throughout the month of December. Partnered with STL Shirt Company to offer a special 101 ESPN online merch store this month, offering 101 ESPN t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Plus, we've brought back some of your favorite designs, including the Dunk shirts, Be Patient shirts, Jamie Rivers and Brad Thompson jerseys. You can order at 101 ESPN swag during the month of December. Proceeds from all sales will go to support Operation Food Search. Visit the 101 ESPN online merch store now at 101ESPN.com, powered by McBride Homes. I've done a terrible job managing time because we are almost cutting into the fast lane time. So no rewind today. We'll hand things over to Anthony Stalter in the fast lane. Myself and T-Bone will be back with you tomorrow. BK will be back. Appreciate Bradford Bruns helping out. I'll talk to you tonight at 8 o'clock. Blues and Golden Knights. The fast lane is next on 101 ESPN.